starting over the next 2 months. And part of the reason has to do with electricity costs, which are about to hit you quite hard. The energy regulator, NERSA, has approved Eskom's 2025 retail tariffs and structural adjustment. Sounds like a mouthful, but the bottom line is that it paves way for a 12.74% electricity price hike from the 1st of April 2025. Municipal customers will feel that later in the form of an 11.32% increase starting on July the 1st. Eskom says the increases are part of its new pricing model, which is aimed at recovering more revenue, even though you and I, we feel it as customers. We feel it in the billing changes that drive costs even higher. So if you add VAT, the 0.5 percentage point increase that was entailed in the budget, add that to what I've just told you, then you realize that we'll be paying significantly more, particularly for the price of electricity. At about 7:20, I'll be in conversation with Professor Vali Padayachi, who will unpack all of this and what it means and what this, retail tariff and structural adjustment really is, and how it relates to the price increases and the tariff increases that Eskom was applying for over the last few months. So that conversation coming up at about 7:20. Then I want you to engage me also on this. It has to do with the role of informal businesses, spaza shops, and the likes in our economy. Statistics South Africa has reported a surge in informal businesses, with numbers rising from 1.1 million in 2009 to 1.9 million in 2023. The latest survey reveals that most of these businesses operate without permits or licenses and are often run by individuals whose highest education levels are below metric. So that's the picture emerging from Stats SA. And despite the challenges, the sector continues to expand, we are told, playing a crucial role in the livelihoods of many South Africans. Later on in the show, at about 6:45 actually in this hour, I'll be speaking to Roshida Mula, who is the president of the National Informal Traders Alliance of South Africa. But add to that background words that have come out from former President Kgalema Motlanthe speaking at the University of Johannesburg a few days ago, stressing that economic policies that promote self-employment overlook the need for industrialization, infrastructure, and stable job structures. So to quote the words of former President Motlanthe in relation to informal businesses, he says, quote, "Research and lived experience of many reveal that what is often called entrepreneurship in the form of spaza shops is in reality informal, insecure labor, a survival mechanism rather than a driver of sustainable growth." End quote. So I would like your engagement. Let me not say I would like your engagement on how we tap into the recent momentum around registration of spaza shops, the 500 million rand that is being added to help and support local spaza shop owners. How do we build on that momentum and address this gap that has been identified by people such as former President Motlanthe about, bridging the gap between informal, insecure labor and the survival mechanism, but actually make it a force for growth within our economy. I'd like to hear solutions. We've spoken at length about what the challenges are, but what are the solutions such that small informal businesses, including spaza shops, become a force to be reckoned with within our economy? Weigh in on that or any other matter that's exercising your mind this morning. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on these and other topics on 061 410 4107. Of course, we have all of your regulars locked and loaded for you once again this morning on Delambana with your news updates every half hour. We have Rob Byrne with your traffic every 15 minutes or so. Zaikan is watching your sport throughout the morning. Ndauleng Lechela has your economics, business and market news covered. Sipho Mantula with your Africa update just before 8 a.m. And as I said, I take your calls throughout the show, 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes 061 410 4107. We are at SAFM Radio on X. We are SAFM Radio on LinkedIn and Instagram, and on Facebook as well. And we are also live on our YouTube channel, SAFM Radio. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The first hour of the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Second place, Badopa Glare, and number one on the lot, Toulouse, are battling it out in the top of the table clash. They both believe they deserve maximum points. This is the top 14. Rugby, the French way. Catch the big clash of giants between Bateau Union Pegler and Stade Rouen on Sunday, 23 March at 10 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
Hey, Ondela, good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to have you back.
Good. It's good being back here.
How are you coping with the early mornings?
I'm not. I'm not.
Welcome to the
But
club.
hey, we're here.
Yeah. Big story this morning, the SASSA cards conversion deadline, yeah?
Yes, and it's a big story. There's been a lot of frustration with regards to the migration, and today, as you say, is the deadline for all beneficiaries of the SASSA to switch from the agency's gold card to the Post Bank's black card. The migration process has left some recipients frustrated. There's been long queues and understaffing, which we have been plagued by assistance centres across the country, even after the initial February deadline was extended. SASSA says the beneficiaries can make the card swap at selected ShopRite, Checkers, USave, Pick and Pay, Boxer and Spar stores. And we are now moving to court cases. There's a number of court cases today. One of those, this one had happened on Tuesday. Former SAA technical chairperson Yake Kwinana appeared in the Randburg Magistrate Court in Johannesburg on Tuesday. She faces charges of extortion, theft, intimidation and malicious damage to property. And the organization OUTA says the arrest of SAA technical chairperson Kwinana comes as no surprise. The case has been transferred to East London in the Eastern Cape, where she will now make her next appearance on Monday. Still in court cases, another witness could be called in to testify in the Jocelyn Smith kidnapping and human trafficking trial today, in the event that the state star witness Laurentia Lombard is booked off by the doctors. Yesterday she broke down on the stand and the trial had to be postponed. She showed signs of strain several times after being cross-examined by defense attorney Fanny Harmse. He has been attempting to discredit her as an unreliable witness, and the court judge Nathan Erasmus also questioned Lombard on several discrepancies in her testimony. And the last one today, the city of Tshwane says there will be a 10-hour temporary water supply shutdown. This will enable technicians to refurbish the pump station at the Babelegi Reservoir and the conveyance system to the Temba water treatment plant. The shutdown will start at 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. That's all I have for you this morning. I will be back with the news headlines at 6:30.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ondela Mbana. She'll keep you updated with the news every half hour throughout the show.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Yeah. So here's how your weather is looking on this Thursday morning. We start with two impact-based warnings that have come through from the South African Weather Service. The first one, yellow level 1 warning. It says severe thunderstorms with possible strong winds, heavy downpours, hail and excessive lightning resulting in localized flooding in susceptible areas and localized damage to infrastructure, settlements, property, vehicles, livelihood, and livestock. Those conditions are expected over the northern parts of KwaZulu-Natal. The second warning is a yellow level 1 warning. It says disruptive rainfall leading to localized flooding of roads and settlements and damage to infrastructure expected over the southern parts of Gauteng as well as the Highveld and escarpment of Mpumalanga. The rest of your weather looks like this. Pretoria will be cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers with a minimum of 15 and a maximum of 24. Johannesburg, cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, 13 to 21. Mbombela will see morning fog, otherwise cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 17 to 22. Polokwane will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 14 to 22. Mahikeng, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 16 to 26. Bloemfontein will be partly cloudy, 16 to 26. Kimberley, partly cloudy, 19 to 30. Uppington, partly cloudy, 22 to 31. Cape Town will be fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon with possible mist in the early evening, 21 to 33. George, cloudy with morning fog patches, becoming partly cloudy but fine by the afternoon, 18 to 30. Gqeberha will be fine, 19 to 26. East London, fine, 20 to 28. Durban will be cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 21 to 28. Richards Bay will be cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, 21 to 29. And finally, Pietermaritzburg will see morning fog patches, otherwise cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 14 to 28.
Jazz lovers, the wait is over. Africa's grandest gathering returns on the 25th to the 26th of April at the Cape Town International Convention Center. Experience 2 nights of soul-stirring jazz, electrifying collaborations, and over 30 world-class artists across 4 iconic stages. Don't miss this unforgettable musical experience. Get your tickets now at ticketmaster.co.za. Brought to you by Independent Media, proud media partner of the Cape Town International Jazz Festival.
For 90 minutes, neighbors will not get along. Bafana Hugo are hunting for 3 points. But Dikwena want to cause an upset. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Witness the human rights pitch rivalry between South Africa and Lesotho on Friday, 21 March at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, S3 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
It's coming up to 23 minutes after 6. Germany's Bundestag has approved a landmark proposal to exempt defense and security spending from the country's strict debt rules, while also creating a massive 500 billion euro infrastructure fund. The measure, championed by Friedrich Merz and the CDU party, marks a major shift in Germany's fiscal and defense policies. Passed by a 2/3 majority, the law allows increased military investment and infrastructure upgrades without violating the country's 0.35% GDP debt cap. Officials say the move strengthens Germany's role in European defense amid growing uncertainty over the US NATO commitments and continued unease around Russia. Let's welcome into the conversation Roland Henwood, who is a political scientist and commentator at the University of Pretoria. Good morning and thank you for your time. So the one thing I read from all of this, Roland, is that Germany doesn't mess around with the so-called debt break, right? And rules around debt discipline are entrenched in the Constitution, hence the need for a two-thirds majority vote as far as this new approval is concerned. What are we to read into this approval happening in the way that it does by two-thirds majority and happening at this juncture in terms of, history and how things are unfolding in Europe and elsewhere?
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Yes, very strict rules and embedded in the Constitution. You're correct. That's why there's a two-thirds majority. Effectively, you are changing the regulations around this. Although one must be careful, there is a history of circumventing the regulation through different funds and means of manipulating, in a way, spending. But the crisis that Germany finds itself into at this stage started with a court case that actually blocked certain practices and the creation of a fund to support green energy transition, because that's one of the main issues in Germany is the changeover and energy supply. Germany has serious economic problems. It's been battling for the last 3 years, and it's been in recession, high unemployment, high costs of living, and all of that around economic performance, but also linked to governance practices and regulations such as this. So this is a very important development. But it's probably not the silver bullet that's immediately going to solve the problems, although I think it's a very important indication of the seriousness of the incoming government in how they approach this and the means they are going to focus on to start changing not only governance, but also the way in which government's practices, funding and projects are going to be tackled.
Yeah, but it still needs the approval of the Bundesrat, which is the other house of the German parliament representing the states. But how strong a hand do we believe the incoming, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz to have in light of his ability and the CDU's ability to get this over the line in the Bundesrat?
Well, I don't think one must underestimate the importance of what has been done so far. And yes, tomorrow we'll see the vote in the Bundesrat, the upper house of parliament, so to speak. And that will be the final test in getting this done. Again, it shows the seriousness, the single-minded approach in a way, but also an understanding of the politics of the day. The new government is not yet in power. There's still negotiations on forming a coalition, and the indications are that Friedrich Merz realized with the election results and when the new government and the new composition of the legislature takes over, he's probably not going to get this done easily. So he used the existing composition where he has a more favorable ratio to push this through. So it's understanding, reading the politics of the day, using that, it's astute leadership. And yes, the final test is, will it go through tomorrow? If that's done, then probably you're going to see a very different Germany and a very different approach to not only domestic politics, but also the politics of Europe. And in that way, then Germany playing a different role in the global context.
So significantly, it also increases these new measures that have been passed. They would increase defense spending above the 1% of GDP mark. Germany is not alone in significantly scaling up its defense spend, are they? There's been this talk even within the European Union and other countries individually within Europe.
Yes, Germany is not alone. That's the pressure in Europe now, and that's the fear and the uncertainty of what President Trump is doing. And the reading in Europe is that he is no longer committed to NATO, and NATO is not necessarily the security backstop that Europe has become used to. Interestingly, is that it's not just a national focus in different countries across the Union. There's a continental focus and a strong drive. And what the incoming German Chancellor said is that Germany is going to become the leader that it used to be in Europe, and it's going to pull its weight and make its contribution, but go beyond that. interestingly is that there's more and more talk of a European approach to defense, because there's a real fear for what is happening in Ukraine and what the Russian president is doing and has in mind. And it's real. It's not something that's just being used for politics. But there's more and more talk of also a broader focus that will include a coalition of what is called willing partners that goes way beyond European Union members, and that goes beyond the idea of just a new form of NATO that is European-based. So I think what one sees here is the makings of a very different Europe, with a different approach to itself, but also a different approach to the rest of the world.
Yeah, no, there's an inescapable sense that we are witnessing a reshaping of many regions of the world, the shifting sense of politics in various regions across the world. Thank you for your time this morning, Roland Henwood, who is a political scientist and commentator at the University of Pretoria. Bringing us to 6:30, let's check in with Ondela Mbana with the news headlines.
Thank you, Thulas. In the news headlines, social justice movement, #NotInMyName, has expressed its concerns about its terms government's systematic failures in entities such as the Social Security Agency, SASSA. 10 SASSA officials have been arrested for alleged fraud amounting to over 260 million rand. Eskom has suspended rolling blackouts. It says this follows the recovery of generation capacity and the replenishment of emergency reserves. And the city of Tshwane Metropolitan Municipality says there will be a 10-hour water supply disruption in the area today. It will enable technicians to refurbish the pump station at the Babelege Reservoir and the conveyance system to the Temba Water Treatment Plant. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good news, that big crash out of Belfast on the N4 has now been cleared. The road has been reopened, so if you're just a bit worried about having to travel into that earlier closure, road open and traffic starting to move through. Looking okay across Gauteng this morning. If we look at the N1 coming through Pretoria, it's pretty clear. Even the run down to New Road, a little bit lighter than you might be expecting. There is some pressure the other side of Joburg, Mike 1 Boyson's through to Empire. That is just, that's just the busiest highway around the country by some distance this time of morning. Durban looking okay from Prospect and through towards the airport. If you've got a flight to get up and connect with, it's not too bad. Even the run through sort of Spaghetti Junction and Geta Road section through the construction moving okay. Hunt Stepman Highway is pretty busy this morning from Shallcross up towards Wheelchair Road if you're going into Pinetown. And here's two big problems into Cape Town. One is coming out of Khayelitsha, a big volume highway driving into a crash at Borchard's Quarry. So traffic heavy. It's all the way back through to Spine Road. The run through Khayelitsha down to Nyanga, very heavy. And the other problem that we're keeping an eye on is the traffic lights right at the end of the elevated freeway. That's the Foreshore Highway coming into town on the N1 and I guess merging into it on the N2. The traffic lights are down. They're not working just as you come off that freeway, sort of around that waterfront exit. That elevated freeway is already queuing up and it's going to potentially be quite a big nightmare for motorists going that side of Cape Town city centre this morning. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey, good morning to you, Zai.
Good morning, Thulas. Welcome back.
It's good to be back. Yeah. So it's Lesotho versus Bafana Bafana. Tell me about the stakes, how high they are, and what kind of a game can we expect?
Thulas, our small Inyana neighbor wants to show us flames.
Yeah.
Because they are just, I think there's 2 points, just 2 points separating us. So I don't know if they can pull it off.
Sure.
Because it's getting tight. This battle, it's
Yeah.
going to get very interesting. Let's see, Thulas. Lesotho is the underdog, but hey, even I think an antelope can outrun a lion if the lion gets lazy. So let's hope that doesn't happen to Bafana. Bafana tomorrow, big day. Peter Mokaba Stadium is where it all goes down. Bafana taking on Lesotho. It's a crucial 2026 World Cup qualifier. Lesotho's coach, Letsley Notsi, has fired up his squad, calling for a massive performance against their neighbours with only 2 points separating them in Group C. Both teams know there's no room for error. Bafana coach Hugo Bruges isn't taking Lesotho lightly, warning that the team will fight for every metre and every ball. Kickoff is at 6 p.m. You can catch it live on SABC Sport. In the meantime, South African stadia are again in demand for World Cup qualification fixtures this week as neighbouring countries are again forced to find suitable venues for home matches. Because they don't have suitable venues themselves, Zimbabwe will play their home game in Group C against Benin at Moses Mabhida Stadium in Durban later today. Eswatini will host Mauritius at Mbombela Stadium on Sunday as they look for their first points of the campaign. Namibia's home game against Equatorial Guinea on Monday was set for Orlando Stadium. It's now been moved to Polokwane. Elsewhere, Louis Buffon, son of the Italian World Cup winner Gianluigi Buffon, says his international future is with the Czech Republic rather than his father's country, Italy. The 17-year-old Pisa winger has been called up by the Czech under-18 side for games against England, France and Portugal. Buffon qualifies for the Czech national team through his mother, Elena Seredova. In the meantime, the Netherlands will start with Memphis Depay leading their attack and Frankie de Jong in midfield in tonight's Nation League quarter-final against Spain in Rotterdam. Coach Ronald Koeman confirming that this will be the first leg clash, and the 31-year-old Depay is 5 goals away from becoming the country's record goal scorer, but has not featured for the Dutch team since last year's European Championship. Athletics. Bayanda Walaza has accomplished an impressive feat once again. The 19-year-old athlete set a new national under-20 record by delivering an outstanding performance, winning the 200-meter event in a time of 20.08 seconds. Now, just 4 days prior, he broke the age group record in the 100 meters, clocking in at 9.99 seconds. Both performances have automatically qualified him for the World Championships in Tokyo this September, making him the first South African to meet the standard in the longer sprint event. Meanwhile, the outgoing International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach was named honorary president for life, with the German due to step down in June after 12 years in charge. The proposal was passed by acclamation, with a teary-eyed Bach, whose successor will be elected today, earning a standing ovation from the IOC members at their session in southern Greece. Here's Bach.
We should never forget that this Olympic movement is much, much greater than ourselves. We can be grateful, and I have always been grateful, to have this privilege to work in this Olympic movement. It was, some were saying, it was such difficult 12 years, and you have made sacrifice, and I didn't make a single sacrifice in these 12 years. I'm grateful that after my career as athlete, I could continue to live my passion for sport.
And that's how we...
I know you want to sprint out of here, but Bayanda Walaza, man.
Oh my gosh.
What a phenomenon.
What?
A phenomenon is born, Zai.
The future looks bright for us.
A phenomenon is born. My goodness.
What a wonder
Beautiful
kid.
to watch.
Ah, well, I will be back in the fast lane. Top of the hour. I'm Sai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Ndauling. Ndauling, let's start. I see that you've got a strong focus, and I'm looking forward to it over the next 3 hours on decisions on rates as well as our focus on inflation. So let's start. Tell me about the Fed and them standing, to use your English, standing pat on rates, to use your posh...
Posh English.
UK English, yeah. Tell me about them standing pat on rates.
Morning, Silas, and welcome back. Now, of course, this decision is in line with expectations. Policymakers, of course, standing pat on rates again as economic uncertainty increases. Now, this move was made as the Fed navigates an economy impacted by President Trump's tariff policies. The central bank's key lending rate will remain between 4.25 and 4.5%. The Fed also revised its growth forecast for 2025, predicting slower growth while inflation expectations were raised. And this, of course, comes as some economic indicators point to the downside, further fueling slower growth concerns. Now, despite this, the Fed still plans or is still pegging in rate cuts and expects to cut rates twice this year, but in the second half of the year. But not all policymakers agreed with this decision, with one governor dissenting due to disagreements over the pace of reducing the Fed's balance sheet. Now, Trump's economic policies, including tariffs on Canada, China, and Mexico, have raised concerns among analysts about potential inflation and economic growth impact. These policies have also complicated the Fed's efforts to achieve its inflation target of 2% while maintaining a healthy labor market.
And then over on the other side of the world, tell me about the People's Bank of China and where they stand on issues to do with rates cuts, or are they leaving them unchanged?
They've left them unchanged as well, following global peers like the Fed and the Bank of Japan yesterday, also keeping rates unchanged. Now, the People's Bank of China maintained the one-year loan prime rate at 3.1% and the five-year loan prime rate at 3.6%, marking no change since their reduction in October. Now, China's decision highlights its dual focus on fostering economic growth while supporting the local currency amid rising trade tensions and tariff concerns. The LPRs play an important role in China's financial sector, influencing the cost of corporate and household loans. Now, the one-year LPR affects most loans, while the five-year LPR sets the tone for mortgage rates, which is pretty important in China, considering that they are still battling to get out of that property crisis. Now, to manage external pressures on the yuan, the PBOC has also kept its primary 7-day interest rate at 1.5% since last year. Despite challenges, Beijing aims to achieve 5% economic growth, underscoring the importance of its current economic strategies by maintaining a stable rate environment. China is looking to sustain economic momentum without worsening currency vulnerabilities. So while we are seeing different nations, different countries battling with their own crisis, it does seem like Trump's trade policies have somewhat set the tone, with a number of policymakers keeping rates unchanged. All eyes are now shifting towards the SARB and the Bank of England for their rates moves today.
Yeah, we'll see later on this afternoon what Governor Kganyago and others at the MPC will decide, and that's coming up later on this afternoon. Give us a sense then of how markets are looking here and elsewhere in the world this morning.
So U.S. markets back in the green, and this despite the Fed warning of high inflation and lowering its growth forecast. With that, the Nasdaq making the most gains, closing 1.4% higher. Back at home, sentiment remained upbeat, with the all-share hitting an all-time high, crossing the 90,000 point mark. It closed 1.4% higher, and this being fueled by gains in the resources index, up 2%, and that momentum filtering through to the rand, the local currency trading stronger this hour at 18.10 to the dollar. Over in Asia, stocks mixed, with most traders there digesting rates moves from China and the US.
Hey, Ndawling, we'll catch up with you a bit later on. That's Ndawling Lechela. Look out for her second update and insights, and that's coming up just after 7:30 here on the Morning Brief.
Sihlangu semnikati want to attack their visitors from the first whistle to the end. But the Dodos are confident they will toast to victory after the final whistle. Both nations are thirsty for maximum points. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Experience the joy of African football. Eswatini versus Mauritius on Sunday, 23 March at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
Join us for the first ever Radio 2000 Annual Family Day in partnership with SABC2 on Saturday, 22 March at the Fat Olive, Pelindaba Road, Lanseria, Johannesburg. Enjoy go-karts, five-a-side soccer, pedal boats, and more. Explore the arts and crafts market and treat your taste buds at our food stalls. And a kid zone will keep the little ones entertained. Gates open at 10 a.m. and tickets start from just 100 Rand at ticketpro.co.za. Follow us on Radio 2000_ZA. Radio 2000. Our music, your memories.
This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us. Because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
It's just gone 7:15 on this Thursday. Statistics South Africa has reported a surge in informal businesses, with numbers rising from 1.1 million in 2009 to 1.9 million by 2023. The latest survey reveals that most operate without permits or licenses and are often run by individuals whose highest education levels are below metric. Despite the challenges, the sector continues to expand, playing a crucial role in the livelihoods of many South Africans. I'm joined now by Roshida Mula, who is president of the National Informal Traders Alliance of South Africa, NITASA. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. So according to these statistics, as far as reasons go for why people start an informal business, the primary motivator, we are told, is unemployment and this sense of not having an alternative income source. Does that matter at all? Does it matter why people start informal businesses, or are we to celebrate the growth in the informal sector?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning to you, sir. You know, I'm so glad that we're talking about this.
Sure.
Because one need to understand, notwithstanding the arguably figures. Those figures are arguable. And percentages that have found their way into the public discourse. The informal sector, we feel there is a need to challenge those numbers. One has to understand the sector. Having 35 years in the sector, I've grown to see things differently to what is often published. Currently, we are trying to do our own statistics, and we are looking at all the districts in the, let's say, the Western Cape. We have 6 districts. And with the little resources we have, we trying to show that the informal sector is such a huge mammoth, a monster of a sector, which is not really totally understand. But this task is mammoth, and the lack of resources and logistic support prevented. But it is important to realize that it's not simplistic issues. One has to factor in many dynamics that drive this vibrant and critically important business sector.
So tell me about tell me about the issue of unemployment then being a primary motivator, at least according to the Stats SA survey. The question I asked is, does it matter why people start, or is it merely about if it responds to the objective economic circumstances, we should celebrate it?
I think it's a sector to be celebrated, but much work needs to be done. Why do people enter the informal employment? That's what we're speaking about. Mm-hmm. Why is it such a vast majority not able to catapult themselves into the formal employment? Mm. And also the immense socio-economic challenges. The answer to this is one word: survival. Hmm. People need to survive. And I think that is something that we need to realize. You know, Stats SA can bring out those things, but to people like myself, to us, the leadership we know that, yes, they are not permitted. Many of them are not permitted. Why not? Because of the challenges we have even with municipalities. Mm. Right up until today, we are still evicted. We are still being harassed. And yet we are the biggest job creators. Much needs to be done. We don't have the natural resources. We don't get finance. Yeah. We don't qualify for that. You know, maybe a question from you again.
What are the difficulties in as far as getting permits and licensing? We've seen a big drive in the last few months, particularly around the registration of spaza shops. How important an initiative was that in addressing issues that the sector faces on a daily basis around licensing and obtaining of permits?
Nitasa's view is that there should be registration. But it's not going to come easy and overnight. And even the time period that we had has not been enough. A fraction, I would say, of the informal sector is still not, is registered, but the vast majority is not. Why? Because we are not on the database or the radar of local government. There's not been enough done, even at national government. We have heard one of our ministers, what's her name, Kubai, she was saying that, you know, why must informal traders pay? They should pay if the services are provided, if the enabling environment is afforded to them for growth and development. But like I said, the one word, it is because of survival that we are out there. Much more needs to be done. We are not self-consulted. Government consults on their own. They don't consider the national organizations, and we're not the only one. I'm not that. Yeah. But we need to give input on this.
All right. Lastly, let me ask you then how we can leverage on some of the momentum from recent initiatives, including that 500 million rand support that government is saying they will advance to the informal sector. And I ask this question in light of comments by former President Kgalema Motlanthe, who was talking about research and lived experience revealing that what is often called entrepreneurship in the form of spaza shops in this country is in reality informal, insecure labor, a survival mechanism rather than a driver of sustainable growth. Can we flip that around and make it a driver of sustainable growth through initiatives such as the support that was recently announced to the tune of some 500 million rand?
Well, that's an interesting one, and our eyes are wide open like hawks to watch how it unfolds. It is extremely difficult to access finance from government. The red tape, the bureaucracy, the informal trader on the street does not have access. And it shows the resilience of the sector to continue to survive. But we don't want to survive. We want to have economic growth. Much more has to be done. Systems need to be placed, and more stakeholders need to be called around the table so that we can plan a better economy.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That's Roshida Mula, who is the president of the National Informal Traders Alliance of South Africa, NITASA.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. A lot of pressure on Pretoria East routes this morning. It sort of has a little bit of a feel about maybe some power supply issues in there. You can sort of see that because traffic all of a sudden pops on multiple routes. One of the big ones is Solomon Mhlanga coming from Linwood Road down towards Old Farm. That's a really heavy queue. And then more queues on Solomon Mhlanga down towards Delphi. Atterbury Road going inbound is busy. Grasfontein coming up to Solomon Mhlanga very slow as well. We'll keep an eye on that, but Pretoria East just getting sort of busy across the region. Crash on the bottom of the N1 southbound at Buccleuch interchange. All lanes open, but morning time volumes coming down that N1 just means a queue from Allendale as you line up to get past that scene. A lot of pressure around what they call Dead Men's Bend south of Joburg. N12 inbound from Eldos through the bend onto the N1 up towards Devlin. There's quite an unusual queue there. South of Durban, Chatsworth Link Road, that's the Shallcross Link Road, just north of Chatsworth, closed again. So Chatsworth through to Shallcross, not possible. That is a resumption of yesterday's protest that we saw in the area there. Truck crash at Cliffdale. If you're on your way down from Hammersdale, Durban bound, coming on to Cliffdale towards Key Ridge, that is quite slow. Cape Town, N2 inbound from Khayelitsha through to Borchards Quarry is heavy. That's an earlier collision. And there's no traffic lights at the end of the elevated freeway down by the waterfront exit. Those lights failed earlier this morning, so pretty heavy going towards the city centre area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is a story of Vodacom's impact.
I didn't know anything about computer. I learned a computer after I passed my matric, and Vodacom is doing an excellent job in the youth of South Africa.
This is why we do it. Over 1,800 Youth Academy students trained, with 250 placed in ICT coordinator roles at our schools of excellence. That's why we're the #1 CSI contributor for 8 years running. See more at now.vodacom.coza. Further together, Vodacom.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
We're just battling a little bit to get a hold of our next guest. That is the Ekurhuleni Metro spokesperson, Zweli Dlamini. But, you know, there's enough for us to talk about. If you live in Gauteng, you will know why we wanted to talk to Zweli Dlamini. It has to do with that blockage, the blockages that you saw on key routes in the east of the province, east of Gauteng, when the members of the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department were embarking on that protest of theirs, right? Using official vehicles to blockade roads, including the R21, R24, N12, N17, and N3. At the heart of their grievances have been these issues to do with salaries and the cuts in the amount of overtime that they are allowed to work and claim. And basically they are calling for a revision of their salaries to compensate from a reduction of overtime from 80 hours to 16 hours that they are allowed to work as overtime. They are saying that that hits them in the pocket. But in the process, the blockades that they undertook, many people debating whether or not they were allowed and entitled to do that, blockade the roads using official state vehicles. Then there's a conversation about them being essential service workers. Of course, just because they're essential service workers doesn't mean that there's not been a pathway carved out in terms of the law, allowing some of them to take part in strike action. So there was this, this guidance that was given by the CCMA some time ago that has to do with the minimum services agreements that can be struck in the workplace, such that when a sector that's considered an essential service goes on strike, it is managed in a way such that those who are not strictly speaking essential services, but also those who are off and are able to take part, can do so while the minimum services are being maintained. So we thought we'd take that conversation forward, but it's fine. We'll see if we can handle it a bit later on. But for now, let me take some of your voice notes and calls that have come through. Let's start with this one that has to do with the informal sector of the economy and informal businesses.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. It takes attitude to run an informal business. It's not about a matter of education. Yes, you can have education, but with a bad attitude, you cannot go anywhere. And the other thing about ESCOM increasing the electricity, it communicates more corruption, more bridging of electricity, by Proteagla.
All right. No, thank you for that. And thank you for those insights about what it takes to run an informal business. I can imagine it can't be easy. All these regulations, all these bylaws that you have to navigate. But just also access to financing is one of the issues that is flagged in that Stats SA report.
Morning, Chris in Camberdown. You know, Motlande has hit the nail in the head. As South Africans, we really are ignoring these people, and they are truly survivalists, and they are being marginalized, deliberately so, because there's quite a lot that you speak about changing the structure of our economy and so on. This is the highest employing sector of our economy, but very little is done in order to support it or even to regulate it. Read the stories of street vendors in eThekwini and taxi rank, how they become victims of criminals and rapes when they are women. This is a sad story about South Africa, and really must stop speeches and start acting.
Yeah, can't agree with you more there, Chris, in terms of, you know, we must stop the speeches and start acting on some of these commitments. And I wonder, to what extent are the bylaws that municipalities pass alive to the role of informal businesses? I'm not saying, you know, remove all controls and have no bylaws and no requirements for registration, but a pragmatic approach such that you carve out spaces for small businesses and informal businesses to thrive, while at the same time enforcing those bylaws, while at the same time enforcing other national laws that have to do, for instance, with the spread of counterfeit goods and the likes. It must be possible to strike a middle ground of sorts between strict enforcement of the laws as they stand and bylaws as they stand, but at the same time not being stringent to the point that it becomes virtually impossible for someone who is unemployed looking for a way to earn a living, an honest living, to be able to trade and engage in informal businesses. Keep those coming. We'll take more of your calls and your WhatsApp voice notes around this issue throughout the show. But for now, let's check in with Ondelambana with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
Thank you, Tulas. Top stories at 7. A call to deal with corruption in government entities. And Tshwane warns of water supply disruption. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good morning. Social justice movement, #NotInMyName, has expressed its concerns about what it terms governance systematic failures in entities such as the Social Security Agency, SASSA. 10 SASSA officials have been arrested for alleged fraud amounting to over 260 million rand. Today is the deadline for all beneficiaries of the Social Security Agency, SASSA, to switch from the agency's gold card to the Post Bank's black card. #NotInMyName Secretary General Themba Masango has urged the authorities to broaden their probing to include suspected high-ranking officials.
Corruption often thrives within hierarchies. Only junior actors accountable risk perpetuating impunity. Phrase, cast the net wider and higher, reflects our conviction that deeper accountability is necessary to dismantle corrupt networks. Delayed or superficial justice would further harm communities reliant on social grants. We emphasize the urgency of transparent legal processes to ensure restitution for victims and deter future malfeasance. Justice delayed is justice denied, particularly for those whose survival depends on SASSA integrity.
Meanwhile, SASSA spokesperson Baseka Litsatsi says that defrauded beneficiaries will be reimbursed.
And it's not out of your own making. Obviously, the organization would have to make sure that you get what is due to them. In case where you are a legitimate applicant or a SASSA beneficiary.
Eskom has suspended rolling blackouts. It says this follows the recovery of generation capacity and the replenishment of emergency reserves. The power utility implemented stage 2 rolling blackouts yesterday. It says the power system is now stable and will continue with its planned maintenance. The city of Tshwane Metropolitan Municipality says there will be a 10-hour water supply disruption in the area today. It will enable technicians to refurbish the pump station at the Babelege Reservoir and the conveyance system to the Temba water treatment plant. The shutdown will be between now and 5 o'clock this afternoon. Municipal spokesperson Lindela Mashego.
The areas that will be affected include Lilopie, Hammanskraal, Kanana, Kekana Gardens, Majaneng, Refenze, Sikampaning, Sirman, as well as Temba Unit 5, 7, and Unit D. The City of Tshwane apologizes for the inconvenience that may arise as a result of the mentioned scheduled work.
Turkey's main opposition party has described the arrest of Istanbul's mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu as a coup. Protests have erupted following his arrest yesterday, just days before he was due to be selected as a presidential candidate. İmamoğlu is widely seen as the main political rival to Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The BBC's Emily Withers has the details.
Ekrem İmamoğlu is facing two separate investigations. They include charges of leading a crime organisation, bribery and tender rigging. So this is just a long list of mounting charges against Ekrem İmamoğlu. Just the day before, he had his university diploma taken away from him because the university said that it was forged and it was fake, and this is being called a political move. But the reason the university diploma matters is because without it, İmamoğlu will not be able to run for president here because you need to have a university degree.
Recapping the top story, social justice movement #NotInMyName has expressed its concerns about what it terms governance systematic failures in entities such as the Social Security Agency, SASSA. 10 SASSA officials have been arrested for alleged fraud amounting to over 260 million rand. I'm Wandela Mbana for SFM News Headlines at 7:30.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
R5 can't buy you a pie and cold drink anymore, but Outsurance is still committed to saving you big bucks on your car insurance. Get a quote, and if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for R500 cash and make that R1,500 cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still a bit slow on that N1 South coming through mid-Rand. There's a crash on the side of the highway down by Buccleuch interchange that everybody's sort of having a look at. So once you get past New Road, you're into a sort of secondary queue this one. You've got the usual queue to New Road, and then it stays busy after that. Pretoria is quite slow, as we've been reminding you. A lot of pressure on Linwood Road. Solomon Mshlangu from Linwood Road heading west through the Pretoria East area. More queues down around sort of Solomon Mshlangu Delphi, Grasfontein, Solomon Mshlangu Linwood Road. It's got the sort of hallmarks of potentially a power outage in that Pretoria East area. Crash on Durban's M13 between Hillcrest and Kloof a little bit earlier. Traffic is moving a bit better there, but it is slow. The N3 from Hammersdale down towards Key Ridge, a crash involving a couple of trucks, not serious, but enough to block a lane and backlog traffic on the Durban-bound side. And the Link Road linking Chatsworth and Shallcross closed again due to protesting action. Cape Town N2 inbound from Khayelitsha heavy. There was an earlier crash at Borchard's Quarry near the airport. That's a heavy queue coming through from Spine Road. and a lot of traffic on the N1 this morning. Plattekloof Hill down towards the Kuberg Road junction, and Marine Drive, 3 queues to work for, one down to Racecourse Road, another through to Woodbridge Island, and another through to Milner Road as you come into Parton Islands. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports headlines. It's soccer news. Percy Tau, well, he's hoping to help Bafana qualify for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, something that has eluded him so far. And Cricket South Africa, they are hosting SA Under-19 women's camps as they build up for the T20 World Cup 2027. All this and more at around 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
8 minutes after 7 on this Thursday. Hey, welcome to the second hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. It's good to be in your company this morning. Coming up over the next hour or so, we'll be talking to the Premier of Gauteng, Panyaza Lesufi. We are talking in the context of the province saying that it will reinstate its teacher assistant program after it secured some 200 million rand in national funding, enabling it to restart the program. You'll remember the backlash and criticism that the Premier and the Department of Education in Gauteng faced at the end of July last year when they had to terminate the contracts of those serving within this program amid budget cuts. They're saying now they are reinstating. I'll be asking the Premier just how sustainable that is in light of the budget pressures that the MEC of Finance, Lebogang Maile, spoke about a few days ago when he delivered the budget. That conversation with the Premier coming up in the next few minutes. And then we'll focus a little bit on municipal debt, talking to Eugene Modise, who is the Deputy Executive Mayor of the city of Tshwane. We'll be talking about a scheme that the city is introducing that basically is meant to address historical debt owed by its customers, that basically incentivizes them to pay what's owing and the arrears of recent months. And if they do that, they would be eligible for up to 70% reduction on older debt older than a year. And that conversation with Eugene Modise coming up at about 20 minutes past 7, thereabouts, will be in conversation with the MMC. And then a bit later on, of course, focusing on the issue of electricity affordability with Professor Vali Padayachi. And we'll be talking about NERSA approving Eskom's 2025 retail tariffs and structural adjustment. And this paves way for a 12.74% electricity price hike from the 1st of April for all of us, as well as municipal customers feeling that a bit later on the 1st of July. And that will be at about 11.32% increase in the costs of electricity. So that's how we're looking over the next half hour. All of your calls, I'll take those on 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The second hour of the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Turn your vision into reality with Vodacom Business. Get the Samsung Galaxy S25 on a Red Business 1.7 gig contract for 1,129 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal. Add 69 Rand extra per month over 24 months and get the Samsung Galaxy Watch 7 eSIM. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together. Vodacom Business.
For 90 minutes, neighbors will not get along. Bafana Hugo are hunting for 3 points, but Dikwena want to cause an upset. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Witness the human rights pitch rivalry between South Africa and Lesotho on Friday, 21 March at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, S3 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
This is Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief.
At 12 minutes after 7, let's turn our attention to this story now. Gauteng's Department of Education is reinstating its teacher assistant program after securing 200 million rand thereabouts in national funding. Premier Thulasizwe Simelane and the Provincial Education Department faced significant backlash last year after cutting hundreds, if not thousands, of these posts due to a funding withdrawal. Officials have hailed the initiative, saying since its inception, it has helped equip young people with critical skills and boosted the province's economy. While opposition parties at the time accused the ANC-led government of electioneering, Premier Thulasizwe Simelane has insisted that the program has always been dependent on external funding and it remains essential for tackling youth unemployment and skills shortages. The Premier joins me now to take that conversation forward. Premier, good morning and thank you for your time. What percentage or proportion of the original teachers' assistants that had to be let go at the end of July last year will this funding of 200 million rand enable you as a province to rehire?
Thank you so much, Thulas, and thank you for giving us this platform for discussion. We're opening the platform for everyone. So even those that were part of this program that unfortunately could not continue, and new ones that want to be part of this program, will open them. I think we're targeting almost 22,000, if I'm not mistaken, of young people that are out of school, out of tertiary institutions. Those are the ones that are not at work and are not even within the higher education institutions. Our approach is very simple to us, that teachers must concentrate on teaching. The administrative burden that they have to fill forms, to write letters to parents, or check the attendance register must be given to people that have an interest in education, which are teacher assistants. So it's not only about creating opportunities for them, it's just to build a foundation for future teachers, but also develop skills for those that wants to operate within the education sector, because the education sector is not only about teaching, there are lots of administrative work that can be done there.
How many teacher assistants were let go at the end of July last year?
It was around 32,000.
Around 32,000. So you're now looking at hiring about 22,000. Will you be giving priority to those who were part of the program who lost their positions at the end of July, or is it open on a first-come, first-served basis, and also eligibility over and above the issue of whether or not you were part of the program previously?
In any recruitment process, prior experience becomes a very important advantage for those that wants to continue to be part of this program. I don't think we will ignore that aspect when some of the people that were part of this program come to apply. But remember also it's age-orientated and it's deliberate, because all statistics indicate that young people are going through difficulties, and they don't want to create a future where young people are demoralized or they don't want to be part of economic activities in our country. So if we're still within the age group and we've participated in the program, I will encourage those people to reapply or to be part of this program.
How sustainable would the program be this time around, Premier, given that, part of the undertakings you had made in February last year when you announced that the program would be retained despite the pressures at the time, you could not fulfill, because in the end, those 32,000 young people ended up losing those positions by end of July. So how sustainable can this funding of 200 million rand make this program such that we're not back in the same position we were in July last year?
Obviously, it's not sustainable. We would have wished that it's a program that is more than a year, 18 months max, because that indeed planned the skills that we want. And the last program, it was not out of our making. We knew that this program will come. It normally come around January. We are now in the middle of the academic season. So the way we budgeted it as the Gauteng government, to say we'll bridge the gap. If it ends in December, we can then absorb them for the next 3 months until it restarts again. But when it didn't restart, we didn't have the financial muscle to continue with it. And I'm on record to have apologized to those young people. I'm on record to have met with them. And I'm on record to have shared their experiences, because it was very unfair to them. But that's how financial or budget works within the state. So we can't promise on something that we don't have. the financial muscle to cover. But for now that national government have already transferred the resources to us because that's what we wanted. That let the funds be transferred to us and we'll manage it. And now that is with us, we are of the strong view to say, but these are temporary exercises. The real thing is for us to honestly create opportunities. That's what we're doing. We've got an investment conference where we want to attract almost 800 billion for the next 3 years, just to create infrastructure projects, just to create job opportunities. So we've already attracted 5.4 billion new investment that came from Microsoft, and they need almost 1 million young people that can be trained into AI, which is the future. So out of that, those young people that are part of these teacher assistants, either if it expires, we will then extend them to other programs that are available within the program. So it's just the beginning. It's not going to be the end, definitely.
So in proceeding in the way that you do, despite you acknowledging that at this point, the funding doesn't make the program to be sustainable, do you not risk the criticism that you've faced, particularly when it comes to programs such as this one for the teachers' assistants, as well as the Thulasizwe initiative, the criticism that says you are being populist in your approach and also seeking to drive your own political and electioneering purposes as the ANC in Gauteng. And I ask this, Premier, also against the backdrop where a few days ago the MEC of Finance was talking about a deteriorating fiscal position that he says is driven by declining revenue, mounting debt obligations, and an increasingly unsustainable wage bill.
Not at all. I'm not touched by those allegations or those texts. I mean, it's people that don't understand the serious challenge that we face. So I'd rather have young people working for 8 months and get an income rather than sit at home and do nothing. I'd rather develop the skills of young people who can be absorbed by the economy as the economy grows than have young people who can't be even absorbed by the economy if the economy performs. So those that are insulting me or putting tax, it's people obviously that wants to score cheap political points, or they don't want to participate in the real challenges that we're facing. If you don't take this youth unemployment, you're going to have young people that will take your car, they will invade your house, they will destroy our traffic lights so that they can get copper. They will do everything that will disrupt the economy. So if I'm keeping them in a program for 6 months, to me, it's better than them staying at home doing nothing. For that 6 months, they'll buy their own bread. For that 6 months, they'll acquire a skill. And for that 6 months, they will take care of their own children. So the accusation, obviously, are baseless. There's no election, for example, this year. And people last year were accusing me of electioneering. Why am I continuing with it when there's no election? So that debate of electioneering falls off flatly. So my commitment is skills development to Thulasizwe. I love that. I really believe that's the future. If you don't give young people skills, there's no way that will run the economy. And we should learn from other countries. So the money we have, even though it might not be enough for the fiscals because there are competing demands, now we have a danger of losing the AGUA, and we have to plan for that because Gauteng is the home of motor manufacturing in Tshwane there. So we have to plan for that. We also have already lost the NGO funding for our HIV/AIDS sector and social entrepreneurs. We have to accommodate that. So there are lots and lots of competing demands, but that does not mean we should forget a certain crucial sector that is not at school, that is not within the tertiary institutions, and are in their massive numbers. And because if we intervene, we'll be accused of electioneering, or we'll be accused of being populist, or positioning ourselves within the political parties. I mean, I'm on record. I don't want any future political position beyond what I have now, because I really feel it. I've done my contribution.
Are you sure about that?
I'm 100% sure. I'm 100% sure, Thulas. I've done my part. I mean, for my entire part, 80% of my part, I've been in the struggle, I've been in government. It's time that I concentrate on other tasks.
Premier, has your Thulasizwe initiative lost momentum? I haven't seen those drives that you used to have, those recruitment drives that you used to have, where you would have a whole host of positions available and designate a venue and say, come through, let's help you apply, let's help you get placed. Have you lost momentum given the realities that you and I have been talking about?
No, watch the space. It will happen. I'm glad that you missed it. Because when you do them, I criticize. When you don't do them, I also criticize that it has lost steam. I've just finalized an agreement with Department of Labor. We are taking almost 40,000 young people for certain skills development. We are now currently running a 20,001, and then we'll get the 22,000 from the teacher assistance program. Last year, we asked people that are unemployed to register for skills development program. We received almost 650,000 applications. I'm meeting with SITAs, which are the skills development agencies of various government departments, to check what kind of skills will they absorb. So in the next 2-3 months, we'll be rolling out those programs again so that we can give young people opportunities and skills development.
Lastly, Premier, let me ask you about how disruptive you found as a province for the provincial economy, but also just in terms of governance across the spheres of government. How disruptive did you find yesterday's blockage of roads by striking EMPD officers using official vehicles to stage that protest?
It's lawlessness that we must not tolerate. They might have good grievances, but they don't have to do what they've done. And I've sent a very strong message to all law enforcement agencies, the SAPS, including the Ekurhuleni leadership. This must not be tolerated. We can't be in a position to run government if you have this kind of lawlessness, where law enforcement agencies can behave the way they're behaving. I don't want to discard their grievances. They're genuine, they're fair, but there are platforms to either raise or resolve those grievances. You can't just close a highway, especially going to airport. It disrupts just everyone, even if it does not go into the airport. But we don't have to tolerate this kind of lawlessness. And I'm very, very livid with this kind of behavior and conduct. And I was very clear to law enforcement agencies. If we can't stop this kind of law enforcement of lawlessness, which one are we going to stop? Do we deserve to be called to law enforcement agencies or police if people can do as they wish in our own country, in our own province? I must be honest, Thulas, on this one, I'm very, very firm. And I've registered my displeasure to those that need to deal with this matter. And it's not only that, it's taxi drivers as well, or taxi drivers. You go to Soweto, people have just closed the roads because they are fighting over roads. You go to Zonke, as I'm speaking to you now, police, taxi bosses are fighting against each other over roads. And we've just neglected that responsibility of playing our part. This kind of lawlessness, if it's not tackled, handled, we're going to have the problems that we have. But I was happy after I've communicated with the police and the strike was stopped, and those that were part of this particular program went to the negotiating table. Right. So I'm hoping that the mayor will have negotiations and conclude the matter as speedily as possible.
All right, Premier, let's leave it there. That's Premier Panyaza Lesufi, the Premier of Gauteng.
Negati want to attack their visitors from the first whistle to the end, but the Dodos are confident they will toast to victory after the final whistle. Both nations are thirsty for maximum points. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Experience the joy of African football. Eswatini versus Mauritius on Sunday, 23 March at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Portfolio Committee on Premier and Finance will embark on public hearings throughout the province on the Northwest Appropriation Bill 2025 on the 26th March 2025 in Ngakamudiri Mulema District at Delareyville Municipal Hall in Delarey, in Dr. Kenneth Kaunda District at Tihani Community Hall in Tihani, in Dr. Ruth Sohomotsi Mumbadi District at Bonabona Community Hall in Bonabona, in Bojanala District, Breds White Hall in Breds. All hearings start at 10.
The only talk radio morning breakfast show that makes sense. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
The energy regulator, NERSA, has approved Eskom's 2025 retail tariffs and structural adjustment, paving the way for a 12.74% electricity price hike from 1 April. municipal customers will see an 11.32% increase starting in July. Let's welcome into the conversation Professor Vali Padayachi, who is a power and energy expert, as well as a former executive manager of Eskom and a former senior executive at City Power in Johannesburg. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time this morning, Prof. Just locate this for me in context. This is the tariff increase, the multi-year price determination that Eskom was asking for, is it?
Good morning, Tulas, to you and your listeners, and thank you for inviting me to the show. Yes, very briefly, I think that's a good question to start the conversation. Yes, the Eskom retail tariff and structural adjustment, which is called ETSA, this is where the media statement relates to, by NESA, is to determine and adjust the retail electricity tariffs that Eskom can charge its direct customers, including Munich's and the consumers. And the rationale for this, very simply, is part of Eskom's application to recover its full allowable revenue as part of that methodology. And of course, this is essential for the financial sustainability of Eskom. And of course, as we know, given its challenges that it's currently facing, to us.
But I guess, Prof, what I'm trying to clarify, because the terminology used is quite different. It's called the retail tariff plan, as opposed to, we were talking about a multi-year price determination at the point at which Eskom was asking something in the tune of 30% or thereabouts, with the final approval coming in at about 12.7%. So I'm asking if we're talking different concepts, or is it's exactly the same concept?
Essentially, it's different because the other one covers all of the Eskom's cost reflectivity, etc. And this is mainly the retail tariff, but I would argue you can't divorce the both because one depends on the other. In other words, the retail tariff will depend on the other tariff where they applied for 36% and got the 12%. In fact, I would argue that this 12.7% relates to that very, very basically to us.
So over and above that, Prof, part of what this entails, this approval by NERSA this time around, it includes a new structure of tariffs. Tell me about what's changing in terms of the so-called incline block tariff as well as the time of use tariffs. What difference will that make to an average citizen using electricity?
Well, to keep it simple, to the average citizen, it would mean an increase in their monthly bills by 12.7%. That's to the end use customers. So to keep it simple, the end use customers, those that buy from Eskom directly, would see a 12.74% increase on the 1st of April, and the municipal customers will see that increase on the 1st of July because of the difference in the financial years. And just in terms of the differences, the Munich tariffs has been reduced, I think, from 10 or 11 tariff structures to about 3 broad structures. And there has been some changes to the inclined block tariff, and so the end-use customers would see that impact as well to us.
Yeah. Lastly, Prof, what are the implications? We know about the implications in terms of how it hits us in the pocket. Is any of this at least helping Eskom realize what their objectives are, their objectives of revenue, collecting as much as possible to be in line with the cost of producing electricity and to ensure that they are sustainable?
My response is that this increase would go some way in assisting Eskom, but I think Eskom needs a lot higher increase. And I'm not saying that I totally agree with it, but would need a lot higher increase to fully recover its revenue requirements and to also address its severe financial sort of challenges. So although this goes some way in assisting them, but it does not assist them in fully recovering the revenue.
All right.
To us.
All right. No, thank you for your time this morning. That's Professor Vali Padayachi, who is a power and energy expert and a former executive at both Eskom and City Power. Let's check in with Ondela Mbana with the latest news headlines.
Thank you, Tulas. Another witness could be called to testify in the Jocelyn Smith kidnapping and human trafficking trial in the High Court in Cape Town today. That's in the event that doctors book off the state's star witness, Laurentia Lombard. Yesterday, Lombard broke down on the stand and the trial was postponed to today. Social justice movement #NotInMyName has expressed its concerns about what it terms governance systematic failures in entities such as the Social Security Agency, SASSA. 10 SASSA officials have been arrested for alleged fraud amounting to over 260 million rand. And Namibia's president-elect Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah says her country will continue to support calls for the reform of the UN Security Council. 72-year-old Nandi-Ndaitwah is Namibia's first female leader. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's noticeably a little bit lighter in volumes around the Gauteng highway networks this morning, but we're not without troubles, particularly on the M1 South. There's a crash before Allendale and then a breakdown before Buccleuch interchange. So coming through from Samran, there's just a lot of traffic this morning. Also queues getting onto the highway from the Allendale on-ramp. You're basically driving down a wall of traffic around that breakdown at Buccleuch. There's a crash on Witkoppen Road, a busy route this time of morning from Four Ways to Sunninghill. That crash near Stonehaven Road, so that's quite heavily backed up. The Mike 1, very slow from Boyson's up towards Parktown's Oxford Road this morning. And the earlier problems we had around Deadman's Bend, N12 onto the M1 coming through from sort of Eldo's Devlin side, that's all cleared up. R21 north towards Olifantsfontein Road is looking heavy. Looks like the roadworks may have moved just a little bit further north of the NGen services. Still queuing up on your way to Durban this morning, coming from Hammersdale down to Keyridge. That is a truck crash. Didn't look too serious, but there's obviously a lane closure, and it is quite so because, of course, it's a roadwork area as well. N3 going into Durban is heavy this morning from Paradise Valley. Traffic all the way through to Spaghetti Junction is quite heavily backed up, even by its own sort of queuing standards for this time of the morning. You'll pick up that queue as you merge onto the highway from the M13 at Paradise Valley. Cape Town's N2, Somerset West, really busy both ways, and then the N2 from Spine Road, Khayelitsha, all the way through to the R300. That's jam-packed, and a lot of traffic this morning jamming on the N7 from around about the casino area, Goodwood, right through to that busy Bosman's Dam off-ramp. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning to you once again. I don't know why I thought Percy Tau, right, is one of the icons of our football of recent years. I don't know why I thought he had played in a World Cup before.
Yeah, I also thought the same because he's got like 46 caps already. It would have been a given.
He's such an icon. You automatically think, yeah, I've seen him play in a World Cup before.
Absolutely.
We haven't. He's hoping to change that.
Oh, yeah, he's hoping to change that, Tulas. I think he needs this one for... Bafana, and I hope that he's not just going to be sitting on the warm-up bench and he's looking forward to taking us over the line. No, we're not going to call him Percy Tau just yet. He's only turning 31 in May, but he does know the window to World Cup glory is closing fast. He's returned to Hugo Broos squad after years absent. He's hoping to help Bafana qualify for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, something that has eluded him so far. With 46 caps and 15 international goals, the Lion of Judah knows his legacy could be defined by whether or not he plays on football's biggest stage. You can catch the action. That's the World Cup qualifiers. This one against Lesotho on Friday, 6 p.m, live on SABC Sport. Now, speaking of Lesotho, their coach, Leslie Notsi, believes they're still very much in with a shot of qualifying for the FIFA World Cup ahead of their clash against Bafana Bafana tomorrow. He says they are just 2 points behind South Africa in fourth place, having played the same number of games so far in Group C, which includes Nigeria, Rwanda, Benin and Zimbabwe. Let's hear from the Lesotho coach, Leslie Notsi.
With 6 games to go, is still wide open because with the matches that are there to be played for, gives all the countries an opportunity to secure maximum points and be able to qualify. Yes, of course, there are other countries that you think that are, on paper are the favorites, but then they still have to secure those points and to qualify for the World Cup. But yes, very interesting with the matches that are left.
Let's go now to this. Bayanda Walaza has accomplished an impressive feat once again. The 19-year-old athlete set a new national under-20 record by delivering an outstanding performance last night, winning the 200-meter event in a time of 20.08 seconds. Just a couple of days ago, he broke the age gap record in the 100 meters, clocking 9.9 seconds. And meanwhile, the race to succeed Thomas Bach as president of the International Olympic Committee reaches a climax today with Juan Antonio Samaranch Jr., Sebastian Coe and Kirsty Coventry believed to be neck and neck. Any of these would be a historic winner. That's with the elections taking place in Greece today. Here's Coventry. She's excited.
Staying focused and staying in my lane.
You prefer this kind of competition, right?
I like competition.
That's Kirsty Coventry, the Zimbabwean
Sorry.
Olympian.
That was not meant to be on air. That's Kirsty Coventry.
She's Thomas Bach's favorite, but he wouldn't come out, categorically and say it. So it's going to be exciting to see if she pulls through. But yeah, that's us pulling through. More sport, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning once again to Ndauleng Lechela. Ndauleng, let's talk about government and its efforts to try and salvage and save ArcelorMittal's long steel unit. And you're saying these efforts are coming despite the units being already in wind-up mode.
Yes, and I think it's very important to note that the business has clarified that it has not stopped the closure of its long steel business despite ongoing funding discussions with the government. Now, in the government's latest move to rescue the long steel unit, government has announced that it will cover the wage bill of the business for the next year, which will possibly preserve around 3,500 jobs. Now, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition announced that the Temporary Employer Relief Scheme has approved funding of nearly 417 million rand to sustain just over 2,900 employees over the next 12 months. As part of this support, ABSA must participate in the Productivity SA Turnaround and Recovery Program. Now, this move is part of the government's broader strategy to protect the local steel industry and preserve its industrial capacity. The IDC, one of AMSA's anchor shareholders, has also invested 380 million rands in the company. Now, AMSA initially announced the closure of its loss-making units in January, pointing to tough trading conditions. It has moved forward with the process, saying it is being managed in a manner that accommodates ongoing funding discussions.
Yeah, so interesting to see that some moves are being made to try and save those jobs at ArcelorMittal's plants. And this would be in Vereeniging and Newcastle, right?
Yes, in the KZN, yeah.
Tell me about Tencent delivering 90% jump in Q4 earnings. That's huge, 90%.
That's really huge, Thulas. And you can see the AI efforts are starting to boost the earnings even further. The group reporting a strong fourth quarter performance, exceeding market expectations. The company's revenue rose 11% and earnings came in 90% higher. This was driven by a surge in gaming and advertising revenue. Tencent gaming revenue saw a boost with domestic games revenue in China rising 23%. International games revenue jumped 15%. The company's marketing services, which includes advertising, grew 17%. Now, Tencent has also been investing heavily in artificial intelligence with a focus on becoming a key player in China's AI market. Tencent's AI pushes driving improvements across various products, including its advertising business, and that's really what it's been spending its money on. Looking at the company's capital expenditure, which totaled 76.8 billion yuan in 2024, more than tripling from 23.89 billion yuan in 2023. Now, Tencent has integrated AI-powered features into its other platforms like WeChat, including a chatbot called Yuan Bao. The company has seen revenue from search in Weixin, the China-based version of WeChat, more than double on a year-on-year basis. As Tencent continues to invest in AI and cloud computing, the company is well positioned for long-term growth and success. Now, this upbeat performance, of course, boosting Naspers and Prosus in yesterday's trading session, both stocks ending in the green.
All right, how are the markets looking at this hour, Dowling?
So monetary policy moves influencing markets action today. Traders in Asia remaining cautious, with markets mixed following announcements from the Fed and the People's Bank of China. With that, we are seeing the Hong Kong Hang Seng taking the largest beating, down 1.4%. Over in the US, futures firmly in the green, and this despite the Fed cutting its growth projections for the year as it starts to account for Trump's trade policies. And then back at home, the all-share reached an all-time high, benefiting from a strong gold price, boosting the Resources 10 complex, a strong showing from retailers, and upbeat earnings from Tencent, which boosted Naspers and Prosus, fueling a positive trend in the Industrial 25. The all-share ended the day 1.4% higher. In the currency scene, the rand has been benefiting from a stronger dollar. It's currently sitting at 18.12 to the greenback.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ndauling Lichela. You can catch one more update from Ndauling, in which she will give you a sense of how the markets will be looking on this Thursday, and that's coming up just after 8:30 here on the Morning Brief.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Raz Sipho Mantula. Good morning to you, Sipho. So the Emir of Qatar, is it the Emir? What's the title, the official title? Anyway, Qatar able to pull off what has eluded the AU and SADC in terms of getting the leaders of the DRC and Rwanda to sit down and talk.
Refreshing morning, Tulas, and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. And misty morning where you are, Tulas, it will depend where you are. If you're in the Cape Colony, there's no misty morning there.
Cape Colony.
Tulas, let's look at this, what has come out from the new chairperson of the AU, Muhammad Ali Yusuf, commending these efforts of what will term them the Doha talks. You can say superseding the Harare talks, superseding Luanda talks, Nairobi talks. Now, the chairperson of the AU is saying that he's commending the two countries for their commitment to dialogue. Very important with the Tulas, and saying that the spirit of constructive engagement, it is what is key, but also the efforts to complement the ongoing regional intervention. So for here, Tulas, I don't see Doha overtaking SADC or East Africa Community or the AU, because the AU is also the guarantor of these peace talks. We know, Tulas, on Monday, the M23 pull out from the Luanda talks due to the EU sanctions. So we are still back on the peace efforts of between Rwanda, DRC, and the M23.
Yeah, I saw a lot of commentary, though, Sipho, that was saying that it's interesting that we always talk African solutions to African problems until, we're summoned by someone in Doha in Qatar to say, come, let's talk. And finally, people are able and willing to sit side by side and have conversations.
Absolutely, Tulas. But I think one day we will have a talk of this nostra of saying African problems, African solutions. They are global problems, Tulas. We see Middle East. We see what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. We see what's happening with US and South Africa. So for me, this notion of African problems and African solutions being important sometimes, Tulas. Yesterday I've mentioned it, that African mediation diplomacy need to thrive, and we need to put it back into the agenda of African conflicts.
Yeah. No, I suppose pragmatism sometimes, as long as a solution comes through. Tell me about the convoy of the Somali president coming under attack. Is this from Al-Shabaab?
That is quite true, but this is coming from government sources that President was not hurt. He was unharmed when he was heading to the Middle Shabelle in the southern Somalia to oversee the military operations. And that's where there was this attack next to the presidential palace. But according to other witnesses, they are talking about numbers of 3 people who have lost their lives, but no official information has confirmed. Remember, Al-Shabaab has been involved in Somalia for almost a decade now, harassing the government of Somalia. But it seems President Hassan Sheikh Mohammed have survived this attack.
And tell me about Mali and the decisions they are taking around the Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie.
I'm doing the second part. Yesterday, I spoke about Niger exiting this organization. As we are saying, terrorist influence is fading away. It is now disappearing in the midst. Mali are accusing them, for saying, you are not in line with our constitutional values. At the same time, the issue of them pulling out also is how this organization have treated Mali post the 2020 military coup. The same like Niger yesterday when I was announcing that the Sahelian states are pulling out of this organization because they are carrying an influence when it comes to national interest of this member state. Now, yesterday it was Niger, it's Mali. Soon we're talking about Ouagadougou, Traore also pulling out of this organization.
And then closer to home, Sipho, tomorrow history will be made in Windhoek. Tell me about the impending inauguration of President-elect Nandi Netumbo Ndaitwah.
Yesterday we got a message from Minister Emma Theophilas confirming that 10 heads of state, 3 vice presidents, 2 prime ministers will be at the inauguration of the first woman president of Namibia. We know also ambassadors will be there, former heads of state will be there. It coincides with the 35th Independence Day of Namibia. Interestingly, what I like here is the bloated cabinet that this new president has dealt with, that is going to deal away with the vice presidents, the prime ministers, the deputy minister. He wants to have a cabinet of 12 members in his executive. This is promising because it has been a cry in Namibia, being a small country, but you have a bloated cabinet. Probably it will be a template to other member states of SADC. I hope so. Maybe the neighbors, they will consider.
You're saying a lot. Cabinet. You're saying a lot without saying anything. Kind of simple. Take me back to 20 March 1999 in our historical archives. What happened?
An interesting archive as we are on the eve of Shavilanga Day and also the Human Rights Day, that on this day, 1999, the Azanian People's Liberation Army, the military wing of the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, disbanded following the TRC findings and conclusions that the military wing acted with hatred rather than justice. That was 26 years ago and we know that APLA was formed immediately also after the Shavilanga massacre. But interestingly, the general and commanders of APLA who are listening to this show, it will be interesting that we can bring them on the show to say, but did they acted with hatred or was it part of the liberation struggle to deal with the enemy? Because those findings, I remember, and Tatele Kapa Mphahlele questioned the TRC modus of operandi, how it was treating the liberation movements who were coming forward to come and testify about their actions. Very important archive to us. Hence I said the APLA generals are listening to this show to us. Let's not be we should not ignore that, and we should definitely invite them about the role of liberation movements during the apartheid struggle. Asante sana to us as in the conversation, SFM observing the Human Rights Month.
Sipho, thank you for that. That's Sipho Mantula with your Africa update.
Tshwane University of Technology ladies are chasing 3 points, but Copperbelt ladies have a different idea. They want to play great football for the duration of the match to walk away victors. This is the Hollywood Men Super League. Catch Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. TUT ladies versus Copperbelt ladies on Saturday 22 March at 10:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Second place, Betope Glare, and number 1 on the lot, Toulouse, are battling it out in the top of the table clash. They both believe they deserve maximum points. This is the top 14. Rugby the French way. Catch the big clash of giants between Bordeaux Union Berkeley and Stade Rouen on Sunday, 23 March at 10 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Going to break it down. Vehicle now on the M1 South at Beclue Interchange. There was a crash earlier which backed things up. Then another crash in the queue before Allendale. All of that's being cleared, but we're left with this stationary vehicle driving into Beclue Interchange. So coming from New Road, it's quite heavy. And if you on-ramp the highway from Allendale, expect a queue up there. You're basically turning into a wall of traffic. R21 North has roadworks up towards the Olifantsfontein exit, so they moved a little bit higher than engines. Quite heavy if you're leaving the airport on your way towards Pretoria this morning. Factor in some heavy queues there. Vidcopper, a crash at Stonehaven, so coming from Four Ways across to Rivonia and Sunninghill, that is quite a heavy queue to work through. And some big traffic, just a heads up on Solomon Mashlungu, moving westbound through Pretoria East from Linwood Road down towards Old Farm. You might want to avoid that one. Durban, there's just been a crash at Sabaya on your way from the airport down to Durban. That's likely to have an impact. N3 inbound, very slow this morning from Paradise Valley through towards Spaghetti Junction. There was a breakdown at Pavilion that's being cleared, but the highway remains really heavy. And the M13, Topperfields Hill, driving up the hill into Kloof, if you like, towards the golf course area. We're just tracking some slow-moving traffic there. And the roadworks on Stapleton Road near Sandy Centre causing quite heavy backlogs both ways. Also another crash at Cliffdale Key Ridge area, so Durban bound just after Hammersdale. That all stays very heavy. Cape Town, the N2 inbound, queuing up from Baden-Powell Drive, basically, all the way through Khayelitsha down to Borchard's Quarry. There's quite a lot of traffic on that into inbound this morning. Marine Drive, the heaviest of that traffic towards Lagoon Beach, and a crash on the Wellington Road between Durbanville and Fasantacral, sort of between Lichtenburg Road and Okavango Road. So if you're going in and out of Durbanville, wondering what that's all about, it is quite a big crash in. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Bafana are taking on Lesotho at the new Peter Mokaba Stadium on the 21st of March 2025 at 6 p.m. for the FIFA World Cup 2026 qualifier. Come early, dressed to commemorate Human Rights Day and support Bafana for a chance to win prizes from our host, Limpopo Government and Polokwane Municipality. Gates open at 3 p.m. and tickets start from 70 Rand for adults with special rates available at 40 Rand for children under 12 at all Ticket Pro outlets. If you can't make it to Polokwane, catch the game live on S3 at 6 p.m. Or visit sabcsport.com for more details. Visit safa.net and Bafana on X and TikTok. For 90 minutes, neighbors will not get along. Bafana Hugo are hunting for 3 points, but Dikwena want to cause an upset. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Witness the human rights pitch rivalry between South Africa and Lesotho on Friday, 21 March at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, S3 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
It's coming up to 5 to 8. Let's tell you this story now. KwaZulu-Natal residents are trapped in a relentless cycle of losing their homes to floods, rebuilding, and then facing the heartbreak of losing everything once again. And that's certainly the reality for many residents in KwaZulu-Natal. This ongoing devastation has left communities emotionally exhausted, a phenomenon that is known as disaster fatigue. As the province continues to face wave after wave of deadly floods, the mental toll on survivors, we are told, is becoming increasingly evident. Let's speak to Dr. Kerry Frizzell, who is a counseling psychologist at the University of the Western Cape. Good morning and thank you for your time. So the recent flooding and the related deaths that occurred against the recent flooding that we are seeing now in the last few months occurs against the backdrop of the larger scale disaster that was the 2022 floods that claimed the lives of no less than 430 people in KwaZulu-Natal. How much of a trauma and a trigger must it be for someone who lives in KwaZulu-Natal, who lived through those floods in 2022, whenever heavy rains are predicted and there are these warnings coming through and there's talk of flooding? How much of a trauma does it continue to be in 2025?
Yes, I mean, it's significant. So, you know, when a person experiences a major, or a community experiences a major trauma like this, we see the kind of symptoms that emerge. And one of them is to have a lot of anxiety and worry about the possibility of having to go through what they've been through. So, you know, a lot of people experienced really traumatic events during those first floodings. I mean, if you look at the article by Siphesihle Buthelezi, she's giving an account of some of those experiences, and people talking about having seen loved ones being washed away, or neighbors, just entire homes sliding away. And so what you have after that kind of event is what we call a heightened vulnerability, or a sense of hypervigilance for the possibility of it happening again. So it's an extreme amount of anxiety, and it's pretty persistent and consistent, especially when the kind of weather changes and you kind of get a sense, oh, here we go again.
Yeah, I was wondering if it's possible to compartmentalize these events and perhaps segment them as being national or provincial events, as opposed to events individually experienced, especially if you didn't lose a loved one, or you didn't lose your property in previous bouts of flooding. Is that possible? Is it possible to detach and say these are traumas of the province and not necessarily my traumas?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I think that the issue is at this level, that if something like this affects people at the individual level, the community level, and right up. So I agree with you. And one of the concerns I often have, you know, this concept of disaster fatigue, is that it runs the risk of kind of suggesting that the people on the ground don't have resilience, you know, and can't cope, which is possibly true. I mean, we do see a level of fatigue. We see despondence. But I think what's really important for me is what is happening at the macro level, or the wider social level, that has placed these communities in these vulnerable positions, because we know it's the poorest of the poor communities that seem to be hit the hardest. So, you know, what has happened to ensure that communities are rebuilt in a way that can prevent a disaster in the future, a reoccurrence? Because this kind of trauma is exacerbated when you have a single trauma and everybody mobilizes at a community level and builds everything again. Homes are built, everyone comes together, and then it just happens again. And you kind of ask yourself, well, who's responsible for that reoccurring trauma? Should we focus on building resilience, or should we be focusing on building the community infrastructure so that these kinds of things don't reoccur? It's trying to balance those two things, you know, because you also need at the individual level trauma counseling. You hear people speaking in the newspaper article about re-traumatizing, having flashbacks, ongoing hurt, ongoing despair. Yeah. But at the same time, what's happening at a more structural level, at the level of the government, to prevent this from happening in the future?
Yeah. All right. I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That's Dr. Kerry Frizzell, who is a counseling psychologist at the University of the Western Cape, just weighing in on a conversation that clearly needs to be taken forward about what you work into the disaster response mechanisms that has to do with helping people cope with the traumas that they're exposed to every time an event of this nature occurs, as we have seen over and over in the province of KwaZulu-Natal over the last few years. At 8 a.m., let's check in with Ondela Mbana with the latest news.
Thank you, Tulas. Top stories at 8. Jocelyn trial expected to continue in court, and a call to deal with corruption in government entities. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good morning. Another witness could be called to testify in the Jocelyn Smith kidnapping and human trafficking trial in the High Court in Cape Town today. That's in the event that doctors book off the state's star witness, Laurentia Lombard. Yesterday, Lombard broke down on the stand and the trial was postponed to today. She showed signs of strain several times when defense attorney Fanny Harmse cross-examined her. Harmse has been attempting to discredit Lombard in an effort to prove that she is an unreliable witness. Judge Nathan Erasmus also questioned Lombard on several discrepancies in her testimony. 2 suspects will appear in the Balfour Magistrate Court in Mpumalanga today after being arrested for impersonating police officers. The suspects committed robberies along the N3 highway between Phileas and the Hook Toll Gate in Gauteng. Police say the suspects used a vehicle fitted with blue lights and sirens before hijacking unsuspecting motorists. Gauteng police spokesperson Dimakatso Nebuli says one of the suspects was shot and wounded during the arrest.
The multidisciplinary team operationalized the intelligence information, and the suspects were caught in the act hijacking a Toyota Land Cruiser. A high-speed chase ensued, and there was a shootout between the suspects and the police. The team seized 2 unlicensed firearms with ammunition, military-grade signal jammer, subs insignia including uniform and blue lights, and sirens fitted to the suspect's vehicle and false registration numbers. The suspects are linked to over 30 hijackings on the N3 highway. Police investigations continue.
Social justice movement #NotInMyName has expressed its concerns about what it terms governance systematic failures in entities such as the Social Security Agency SASSA. 10 SASSA officials have been arrested for alleged fraud amounting to over 260 million rand. Today is the deadline for all beneficiaries of the Social Security Agency SASSA to switch from the agency's gold card to the Post Bank's black card. #NotInMyName Secretary General Themba Masango has urged the authorities to broaden their probe to include suspected high-ranking officials.
Corruption often thrives within hierarchies. Only junior actors accountable risk perpetuating impunity. The phrase, cast the net wider and higher, reflects our conviction that deeper accountability is necessary to dismantle corrupt networks. Delayed or superficial justice would further harm communities reliant on social grants. We emphasize the urgency of transparent legal processes to ensure restitutions for victims and deter future malfeasance. Justice delayed is justice denied, particularly for those whose survival depends on SASSA integrity.
Namibia's President-elect Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah says her country will continue to support calls for the reform of the UN Security Council. 72-year-old Nandi-Ndaitwah is Namibia's first female leader. She was elected to office in last year's elections. Nandi-Ndaitwah was speaking in an exclusive interview with SABC News in Windhoek ahead of her inauguration tomorrow.
As members of the United Nations, we continue to demand the reform of the Security Council, because the Security Council is a body that was created specifically to maintain world peace. But because of the imbalance that is now there, because since it was formed at the initial formation of the organization, there has been no reform done, and that has really made it to be irrelevant in a way to a certain extent.
Finland has been ranked as the world's happiest country for the 8th successive year. Experts believe Finns' proximity to nature and access to a strong welfare system help explain its continued top place in the UN-sponsored World Happiness Report. The BBC's Charles Haviland has the details.
Having 160,000 lakes and countless pristine forests seems to keep Finns happy. Nordic countries take the top 4 slots in this year's report. Costa Rica and Mexico entered the top 10 for the first time, with strong family bonds cited as a factor, though the authors say that once households have more than 4 people, happiness declines. They say caring and sharing and a belief in the kindness of others are closely tied to happiness. But the US and South Korea are two countries that have dropped in the table, being among the minority where deaths by suicide and substance abuse are rising.
Recapping the top story, another witness could be called to testify in the Jocelyn Smith kidnapping and human trafficking trial in the High Court in Cape Town today. That's in the event that doctors book of the state star witness, Laurentia Lombard. I am Ndilambana for SFM News Headlines at 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still pretty slow on the run through Midrand this morning. It's an earlier couple of crashes which are being cleared, and now a broken down vehicle at Buccleuch. In fact, that has just been changed, just been updated in the last few seconds to another crash. It's the third collision scene this morning between New Road and Buccleuch. This one at Buccleuch, traffic pretty slow coming down from Olifantsfontein into that one. Roadworks on the R21 North are causing big delays if you're leaving the airport en route towards Pretoria. Big backlog up towards the engine and beyond that to Olifantsfontein Road. Crash leaving King Shaka International Airport heading to Durban. It's on the N2 by Sibaya. That's causing quite a heavy backlog. You might want to off-ramp and go through Mshloti as your alternative route. Use the M4. Also crash southbound. Further delays there before Spaghetti Junction. Delays coming through from Inanda Road. And the N3 inbound really heavy this morning from Paradise Valley all the way through Pavilion and up in towards Spaghetti Junction. If you're Durban bound passing Pinetown, a lot of traffic on that route. Khayelitsha, Muway, just in that Cape Town region of Khayelitsha, Muway closed. Day 3 of that closure between Palmer Road and Spine Road. And if you are going into Khayelitsha area, there's a whole pile of traffic on Spine Road, which is backed up from the N2 down to Jeff Decay Masimola. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. We're building up to the big game. That's tomorrow. Bafana taking on Lesotho in their Group C encounter. And we've also got the likes of Bafana attacking star Oswald Apollos expecting a tricky game. And in tennis action in Miami, Game on Feast makes history. We'll find out more around 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's just gone 8 minutes after 8 on this Thursday. Hey, good morning and welcome to the third hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. It's great to be in your company this morning. Just to recap some of the conversations that we have started over the last 2 hours. Key among them, in the second hour of the show, we spoke to the Premier of Gauteng, Banyaza Lesufi, and we were talking about the possibility of recruiting some 22,000. It's not just a possibility, actually. It is the reality that the government of Gauteng will be recruiting some 22,000 teachers' assistants. This after, of course, they lost 32,000 teachers' assistants at the end of July last year. The Premier acknowledging just how much of a setback that was to a program that the government of Gauteng and other provinces actually find to be quite useful, recruiting these young people to act as teachers' assistants in schools, freeing up teachers to focus on the work of learning and teaching. But the big problem around that program is the issue of funding. So Gauteng being able to secure some 200 million rand in funding at a national level, and that has enabled Gauteng to now be able to recruit some 22,000 of these young people and then bring them back into the fold as teachers' assistants. But the Premier also being quite honest in acknowledging that actually even this 200 million rand doesn't mean that this program will be sustainable even in its current guise. He would have loved for bigger funding to have been availed, but this is where we are. He says for him it's better to have these young people in a position of being engaged fruitfully for 8 months or so, and then when the program runs into financial difficulty, then make the decisions at that point. But also the Premier touching on another big talking point. If you live in Gauteng, you will have seen the disturbances that occurred on key routes in the east of the province yesterday, as the members of the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department embarked on a protest in which official state vehicles were used as part of the procession that was taking place on multiple highways. Really, it caused a significant blockade of those highways. And the Premier making the point that many people are making, that says the grievances may be genuine. They may be genuine grievances that have to do with the conditions of employment and pay for those EMPD officers, but the methods used being a subject of much discussion. So feel free to weigh in on these and other issues. A bit earlier on, I teased out the issue around informal businesses and the role that they play, spaza shops and the likes. Stats SA telling us that the number of informal businesses that have been started has grown significantly over the past decade or so, but the criticism being, how do we move from survivalist approach to informal businesses and spaza shops to actually using them as a basis for sustainable growth within our economy, in light of comments made by the former president Kgalema Motlanthe recently, who said, quote, research and lived experience of many reveal that what is often called entrepreneurship in the form of spaza shops is, in reality, informal, insecure labor, a survival mechanism rather than a driver of sustainable growth, end quote. So I've been asking for your inputs on how we move to ensure that these become a source of sustainable growth and employment in our economy. Weigh in on these topics and others that may be exercising your mind this morning. The number to dial, 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The third hour of the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
In times like these, everyone is looking to save wherever they can. But you don't have to be a detective to know that with Outsurance, you could be saving big on your car insurance. Hear it from real Outsurance client Marius.
The great big saving that I've got, 765 Rand, 27% a month on my premium. It's so quick and easy to swap over. I am part of the Outsurance family.
It's a no-brainer. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Saving on car insurance makes you feel like a winner. And the best part is, if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Tshwane University of Technology ladies are chasing 3 points. But Copperbelt ladies have a different idea. They want to play great football for the duration of the match to walk away victors. This is the Hollywood Men's Super League. Catch Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. TUT ladies versus Copperbelt ladies on Saturday 22 March at 10:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So the following interview is brought to you by Birchwood Hotel and OR Tambo Conference Center. Birchwood Hotel and OR Tambo Conference Center continues to mark their 27 years of existence and the role that their venues have and continue to play in facilitating meetings, conferences, summits, and other dialogues. Birchwood boasts over 60 conference and event venues with capacities ranging from 2 to 2,000 delegates, 665 hotel rooms, and many other amenities. Let's welcome Kabelo Ntebe, who is sales manager at the Birchwood Hotel. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. So we had a conversation along these lines a few months ago as you were talking about marking 2025 as your 27th year of existence. Tell me about how the year is unfolding in terms of you marking this milestone.
Well, warm greetings to you, Thulasizwe. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure being on your platform. Greetings also to all the listeners. Well, 2025, firstly, has been nothing short of remarkable, Thulasizwe, for Birchwood Hotel. In fact, this January was our best in history, the highest performing month since our inception. And we've seen record-breaking numbers. And this is a clear testament to the trust and confidence that our clients have in us. And I must say, Thulasizwe, beyond the numbers, what's even more exciting is a growing number of corporate companies choosing Birchwood Hotel as their preferred venue. We've secured significant agreements with key industry players who recognize the unique value of what Birchwood has to offer, not just as a conference and accommodation provider, but as a true partner in business and in business events and hospitality. So, this momentum is a reflection of our commitment to service excellence, and not only that, but our innovation and our commitment to continuously meet our clients' needs, Thulasizwe. So we're not just maintaining a legacy, but we are setting a new benchmark in the industry. And what's with what's on the horizon, we are truly excited. 2025 is shaping up to be a game changer for Birchwood Hotel.
So record-breaking January in terms of bookings. What do you attribute that high level of interest to?
Well, I think year by year, what we're constantly seeing, our property is just getting better. There's a lot of things taking place here. There's a lot of renovations and so forth. So people just continue to keep coming because of what's happening on the property. And like you said, January, our numbers were nothing like the other years. It's just because our property just keeps getting better, Thulasizwe.
Yeah, and part of that demand, the way I understand it, comes from you getting a lot of support from government departments. Tell me how that has come about.
Well, absolutely. We truly value the trust that our government departments place in Birchwood Hotel. And over the years, we have built a strong relationship by constantly delivering seamless events. I mean, honestly speaking, you have to come to Birchwood Hotel to understand what I'm talking about. And that's it, Thulasizwe. What really sets Birchwood apart is the diversity of our market. While government remains a key partner, contributing about 30% of our revenue, the bulk of our business actually comes from corporate clients, airlines, as well as NGOs. This broad client base speaks of our versatility and also our ability to cater to a wider range, and that's why no other venue does it like us. From high-profile government summits to large-scale corporate events, the different airline crew that come and stay here, and the impactful NGO gatherings. So it's just our ability to balance these different sectors is a big part of our success. So we understand the distinct requirements of each market, whether it's a big booking or small or a small booking, but our team is highly skilled, in delivering tailored experiences for our clients. So we just keep raising the bar, and that's what sets us apart. Not only just from government, but like I said, our market is bigger. A lot of our business comes from airlines, corporate companies, as well as NGOs.
So what else is still in store for this milestone year going forward for you as the Birchwood Hotel, and how do people find out more about you and your services?
Well, at 27 years, Thulasizwe, Birchwood continues to lead the hospitality industry. Why? Because we listen. We listen to our guests, we listen to our clients, and we listen to our people. The voice of our clients has shaped us, to be the giants that we are today, and we're still evolving. So within this year, we're bringing some exciting upgrades, including, a full renovation of our 120 10th and 20th block rooms. So we're renovating those entire rooms, and we're also bringing a complete transformation as well to our Terminal B venue into a dynamic leisure hub, so including a fresh new look of our main reception. So these are some of the exciting stuff that we are up to this year, and it's these kind of things which continue to put Birchwood Hotel on top of our clients. And we are on several social media platforms. Our listeners can find us on platforms like Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube. That's where we share a lot of our updates, a lot of our specials that we tend to launch, and our behind-the-scenes content. So you can also go to our website, which is www.birchhotel.co.za. You can fill in the form and request a quotation, and also you can get in touch with our sales team on 011-897-0000 to arrange a site visit.
All right, I've got to thank you for that. That's Kabelo Ntebe, who is sales manager at the Birchwood Hotel.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Second place, Badopa Glare, and number one on the lot, Toulouse, are battling it out in the top of the table clash. They both believe they deserve maximum points. This is the top 14. Rugby, the French way. Catch the big clash of giants between Bateau Union Pegler and Stade Rouen on Sunday, 23 March at 10 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. Masandawana ladies want to emphasize that they are the conquerors of women's football Mzansi. However, University of the Western Cape ladies are confident they will walk away with a pass mark called victory. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League, the meeting of powerhouses. Mamelodi Sundowns ladies versus UWC ladies on Saturday 22 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
This is Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief.
22 minutes after 8, the city of Tshwane is rolling out a major debt relief program to help residents and businesses struggling with unpaid municipal rates and taxes. Under the plan, those who settle their recent debt within 12 months can qualify for a significant write-off of older arrears. The initiative, open to residents, government departments and businesses, offers a 70% reduction on debt older than a year, provided that customers pay 12 months' worth of arrears in full and commit to a structured payment plan. Let's welcome the Deputy Mayor of the City of Tshwane and MMC for Finance, Eugene Modise. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. How effective do you believe this initiative will be in helping you recover debt owed?
Thank you very much. And let me start by apologizing profusely and unconditionally for not joining earlier. We are having a budget steering committee meeting.
Sure.
As you know that this
no
is
harm
time
done.
for... Thank you very much. I want to share with the residents that the influx is real, and actually we are trying to ensure that we cover all sides. As we speak, we were focusing in Mamelodi. The queues were like those ones of 1994, and the residents are happy, and then we are giving them understanding and forms so that they can qualify and get this debt relief scheme.
But how effective do you believe it will be, given the questions that will arise around striking a balance between enforcement and collection on the one hand, and giving incentives for more compliance and timeous payment on the other hand?
Let me just share with you on Monday, because each and every day we check the records of our collection. On Monday, we have surpassed our target. And in terms of your question, just to give you an understanding, the residents have come forth and confessed that they've tampered with their meters. And then now we are giving them amnesty. Remember, we had temper fee of 29,000. So we are removing it as long as they allow us, or provided they allow us to install a meter. And they are coming forth and in numbers. And in the process, they are able now to buy real electricity. I'm using the term real because they've been buying electricity from a black market. Now we install and then they buy. So that is assisting us in terms of revenue optimization. And the people are happy. But at first, they were doubtful. I don't know, it's the culture of our people because they thought this is something that we want to trap and arrest them. Now, they've seen that their next doors, their neighbors, and everybody is taking advantage of this scheme, and it's real.
So tell me a bit more about that. So you are waiving the 29,000 Rand fine payment that a person would have needed to pay for them to have a meter replaced. Are you not rewarding criminality by doing that?
Yeah, it might sound like that, but the people have came out, and what they are saying is that they are confessing, and in the process, because this has hampered our revenue collection. Now they are coming forth. We are saying no. We have realized that since COVID, our people have struggled to recover, and majority of them have lost jobs. Now we want to cut or deter this wrong illegal connections, number one, and two, the black market of electricity. Then we decided that let's give them amnesty, and then if these people are really honest, we'll install our meter, and we are reaping the benefits already. It's the 20th today, but the movement and the response is quite pleasing.
And how will you ensure that we're not back here in a year, 2 years' time? What measures are you putting in place to ensure that when you replace these meters that were previously tampered with, leading to revenue losses you describe, when you replace them, they cannot be tampered with again, such that we end up in the same position 3 years from now, needing another amnesty?
We were mindful of that fact. The meters that we are installing are upgraded, and we've got another component, which is a protection. That protection tells us that if Thulasizwe is tampering, it will notify us instantly and will be able to respond.
So they are tamper-proof, you say?
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's the correct term.
Tell me about the difficulties you're facing with collecting from businesses. One would imagine that businesses, in the main, most of them are registered for various purposes within the municipalities, bylaws, bylaw adherence, but also even with systems such as SARS and others. One would have imagined that you have stronger collection methods with regard to business, but it would seem you face a particular problem with collecting from businesses in Tshwane. Why is that?
One of the major attributes or contributory factors is the advent of COVID-19. Majority of the businesses there couldn't conduct their business. There was lockdowns and everything. And in the process, they struggled to recover. But now we realize that these people have been subjected to this, and this was a pandemic. Now we are coming forth to ensure that they are compliant, number one. Number two, and their debts are in order. So what we have done, we have given them a scheme for businesses is
MMC?
For 3 years of their debt.
Sorry, MMC.
Of the oldest for 20 years or 25.
Sorry, MMC, we lost you there for a moment. You were saying for businesses, what happens for 3 years of their debts?
Okay, let me say Thulasizwe PTY owes a municipality for 15 years or 20 years. If they can pay for the 3 years, we scrapped the entire debt and the interest.
Okay. So that's the scheme and initiative. But are we not talking here, MMC,
yes,
about...
But if somebody...
Yeah, go ahead.
But if some business doesn't have that the whole amount of the 3 years, we can make arrangement. They can pay 70%, and the outstanding 30% can be made in arrangement, installments thereof.
Someone will ask, how was this even possible? How was this even allowed to happen? A situation where businesses can owe for more than 3 years and some individual customers owe for more than 3 years, when some of your ratepayers, if they miss 2 or 3 months of payments, they will have the Tshwane Metro at their doors to come and switch them off. How was the system allowed to deteriorate to this point that you can have people that owe the municipality for more than 2-3 years?
Our data was not up to scratch. I want to be frank and honest. We are conducting audits. Even a month ago, we realized that there were 10,000 residents who were not paying refuse removal. But now we are using a wise and wonderful system which is giving us all the details. And we are cleaning the data and we are reviewing all the residential accounts. That's what we are embarking on. But in terms of the culture, there was a culture of non-payment, which is individual attitudes, those ones. There are people who are paying on time, and we are respecting them and we are appreciating them. But those who are not paying, we are going to be after their heels, and we are going to ensure that they pay and they pay on time.
And MMC government departments as well, do they benefit from this incentive that you are introducing? One would imagine that they shouldn't. Government should be leading by example in paying.
Government is not business, it's not resident. They don't qualify.
They're not included.
Actually, it's an indictment on the leadership of those departments for ensuring that they don't pay on time.
Who are the biggest culprits? Name and shame.
Please don't allow me.
Why
don't
not,
expose
MMC?
me.
Why
don't
not,
put me
MMC?
under the bus. Don't put me under the bus. We are negotiating with them, so it will be inconsiderate of me to disclose their names while we are negotiating.
How much do they owe you then, these government departments? Are you able to at least mention that?
It's hovering around billions.
Billions, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Let's leave it there. Thank you for your time this morning. That is the Deputy Executive Mayor of the City of Tshwane. Also, it's MMC for Finance, Eugene Modise. Let's check in with Ondela Mbana with the latest news headlines.
Thank you, Tulas. In the news headlines, 3 more cases of Mpox have been confirmed in Ekurhuleni in Gauteng. This brings the number of cases to 31 since the outbreak started in May last year. Another witness could be called to testify in the Jocelyn Smith kidnapping and human trafficking trial in the High Court in Cape Town today. That's in the event that doctors book off the state's star witness, Laurentia Lombard. And Namibia's president-elect Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwah says her country will continue to support calls for the reform of the UN Security Council. 72-year-old Nandi Ndaitwah is Namibia's first female leader. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still pretty slow coming through mid-Rand this morning on a generally lighter volume Thursday. There's been all sorts of incidents unfolding around Buccleuch. The latest is a breakdown that we're still waiting to be finally cleared away. New road into Buccleuch is busy in the Mike 1 as you get through Buccleuch, busy down to Marlborough Drive. Crash on the N3 at Linksfield Road. Now, this is northbound, but there's a queue going southbound as well, so it must be quite a big smash or it's in the right lane both ways into Linksfield Road. Looking slow, just watch out for that, particularly northbound. The Mike 1, there's now a breakdown in the sort of Crown interchange area, so coming through from Boyson's, that traffic remains heavy. In the R21 passing Tembisa, very heavy, heavier than you might be expecting, between sort of the Bupsfontein exit and the Olifantsfontein exit into the roadworks. Durban's had a really busy morning ahead of what's potentially going to be a busy weekend with a lot of arriving holiday makers, I guess, for the long weekend. The N2 south from Umgene Road, moving down towards Spaghetti Junction, still being held by an earlier crash. A little bit slow at Sabaya after an earlier collision, but it looks like that's basically out of the way. Cape Town, N1 from N1 City into the elevated freeway is busy. N2 from Bunga Avenue into town is slow. And there's a lot of traffic on the Four-Trekker Road this morning, coming through Maitland down towards that container storage in the Salt River area. And Kuberg Road, unusual backlogs passing the refinery. Kuberg Road heading up towards sort of that Bloberg Road junction, quite heavy. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you once again, Zai. So the great footballing nation of Lesotho is coming for us, but there's a warning from Oswin Apolis.
Yeah, because he knows that Lesotho's never lost their way. But you know what? He does understand that this is going to be crucial. They want to prove a point, but so do we. You know what I'm saying? And they've dubbed us the noisy neighbors at Lesotho. So we're going to bring
Good
that.
for them.
Absolutely. So hopefully the fans can bring some noise to the stadium as well. So yeah, Bafana Bafana in Polokwane action. World Cup qualifier against Lesotho, and it's Peter Mokaba Stadium. Oswin Apollos expecting a tough battle. Lesotho they are a tough team. They're full of fighters. Bafana, however, is in a good position in Group C with 7 points, tied at the top with Rwanda and Benin. Meanwhile, Lesotho remain unbeaten away from home, having drawn with Nigeria and beaten Zimbabwe. With only the group winners guaranteed a spot at the 2026 World Cup, South Africa must deliver a dominant performance. You can catch the action live on SABC Sport, 6 p.m. Friday. Rugby, the Pumas and Cheetahs, they meet in Nelspruit tomorrow night in the pick of this weekend's SA Cup matches. The Free Staters, they bounce back from their shock opening round loss to Boland in Wellington with a strong performance against the Leopards in Potchefstroom. Meanwhile, the log leaders and the defending champions, the Griquas, they travel to East London to take on the Border Bulldogs as they seize at Dukasha Stadium. Cricket South Africa is gearing up to host 2 national training camps for the South Africa Under-19 women's team as preparations begin for the ICC Under-19 Women's T20 World Cup 2027 in Bangladesh and Nepal. The first training camp will take place from today to the 23rd of March at the Cricket South Africa Centre of Excellence in Shwane. Now, some cycling news with extreme heat forcing organisers to shorten stage 3 of the Absa Cape Epic. The action remained relentless. Willia Vittoria's Luca Bredot and Simone Avondetto clinched victory in the UCI men's category, edging out Scots-Ram's Nito Schurter and Filippo Colombo by just 1 second. South Africa's Marco Jobert and Tristan Nokia put up a fierce fight but had to settle for third. Here's the race winner, Willia Vittoria's Luca Bredot.
Yeah, it's amazing. We are super happy about the results. Yeah, exactly. We just follow the wheels. The South African guys were pushing hard on the uphill. Then Nino and Filippo tried to attack at the top. Yeah, we were just able to follow. And then just sprint finish.
And in the women's category, the specialists Annika Langford and Sofia Gomez Villafane secured their 4th stage win despite Langford suffering 2 crashes. And tennis action, 38-year-old Gael Monfils battled past the world number 59, Fabian Marisan of Hungary, 6-3, 3-6, 6-4 to become the oldest man to win a match at the Miami Open. At 39 years old, 8-time Grand Slam champion Jimmy Connors still holds the record, which he set in 1992. And that's a wrap of the morning brief. We'll have more sport with John Heliker around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning once again to Ntauleng Lechela. So Ntauleng, at about 3 p.m. this afternoon, Governor Lesetja Kganyago will take to the podium and announce the decision of the Monetary Policy Committee. Given the backdrop of inflation, tell us what we can expect. Inflation, you're telling us this morning that it remains steady. Steady for the month of February. That's good.
That's good, Thulas. At 3.2% last month, while it's at a 4-month high, it's still at the lower end of the SARB's 3 to 6% target range. On a month-on-month basis, inflation, however, accelerated to 0.9%. The CPI came in lower than expected by some analysts, with ABSA projecting a 3.4% increase and the Bureau for Economic Research forecasting a 3.7% rise. Now, the main drivers included food inflation accelerating 2.8%, and that was driven by rising cereal, fruit and non-alcoholic beverage prices. Housing and utilities contributed 1 percentage point to the overall CPI, mainly due to electricity, gas, and other fuels rising 11.9%. Additionally, insurance and financial services costs spiked 6%, with insurance alone surging 7.7%. Now, the near-term inflation outlook is considered benign, with forecasters predicting a gradual rise in inflation in the second half of the year. However, compounding inflationary risks, including the government's recent announcement of a 0.5 percentage point VAT increase and risks associated with Trump's trade policies, may prompt the Reserve Bank to adopt an even more cautious approach at this afternoon's meeting. Now, when looking at expectations, this is one of the meetings where we've had economists really, really divided. Some are pricing in a 25 basis point cut, and some are expecting policymakers to hit the pause button. So it seems like we're in for an action-packed meeting come 3 o'clock.
A bit unpredictable, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Let me reveal my age. Years ago, when I was much, much younger, there was an advert that I saw that said, or was it a commentary? I don't know. That said, "The Lord giveth, Derek Keys taketh away." Derek Keys, the finance minister, back in the days of the Mandela government. So we might end up with a situation where Khanyago giveth, Kotongwana, Mteto Nyati, and Den Marokane taketh away. Dry humor.
So pain regardless.
Tell me about retail sales, Ndauling. You're saying that they soared in January.
And really a surprise move. Retail sales kicking the year off positively, with sales rising 7% in January. This as consumer spending saw a significant boost, contradicting forecasts of a slowdown after the December festive season. Now, the main drivers of the upswing were the general dealers category, which expanded 8.4%, and textiles, clothing, footwear, and leather goods, which rose 10.1%. On the top of my head here, when I think of the rise or the main drivers, I think of consumers spending money perhaps on school uniform in January, people that have started work also buying new clothes, and obviously with the general dealers, that's your food, your everyday products that you are using. So it does seem like consumers are still spending money on essentials and not necessarily, going big. Economists in the meantime believe the upward trend in retail sales will continue this year, driven by improved consumer confidence, lower rates, and favorable inflation. Now, increased sales in general dealers and clothing and footwear retailers just reinforced that strong demand for everyday consumer goods. The category, which includes supermarkets and large retailers selling a variety of goods, played a pivotal role in driving consumer spending momentum. Now, the strong growth in retail sales was also supported by an increase in take-home pay, which rose 12.8% year on year in January. But of course, that projected VAT increase outlined in the budget remains a risk, as it will weigh on consumers and overall spending in the coming months.
All right. With the upcoming MPC outcome later on this afternoon, what kind of a day can we expect in the markets?
So local markets likely to open mixed, as we have those big events happening later on in the afternoon. But of course, as we start seeing the local market digest decisions out from the Fed and the People's Bank of China, it's a slow day on the company news front. Results out from Momentum Metropolitan, and there's also an update from property player Shaftesbury. Checking on the currency scene, the rand has remained steady this morning, trading at 18.12 to the dollar. Then over in the US, futures in positive territory, with traders reacting positively to the Fed indicating that there are 2 rate cuts on the cards for the year, and this despite lowering its growth forecasts and anticipating higher inflation. Now, that optimism not fully being seen in the Asian markets, with those stocks pretty mixed. Investors on that front also digesting decisions from the Fed and the People's Bank of China.
That's our Ndauling Lechela. She's always right on the money. Thank you for that. Ndauling has kept you updated on business, economics, and the markets over the last 3 hours.
Shlangse Mnikati want to attack their visitors from the first whistle to the end. But the Dodos are confident they will toast to victory after the final whistle. Both nations are thirsty for maximum points. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Experience the joy of African football. Eswatini versus Mauritius on Sunday, 23 March at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
16 minutes to 9. There's a great deal of concern among the country's health research community in light of the recent cuts in U.S. funding, as well as the talk now of the possibility that country's National Institutes of Health also possibly terminating its grants soon. If funding is pulled, vital clinical trials, including one testing a shortened tuberculosis TB treatment regimen, may be forced to halt before reaching crucial results. Let's speak to Professor Ntobeko Ntusi, who is the CEO of the South African Medical Research Council. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. So distinguish for us, for our listeners, the difference between the funding cuts that we have seen in as far as programs related to PEPFAR, USAID and the likes go on the one hand, versus what we are talking about now, National Institutes of Health. How different are these two, and what's the position? Is the NIH funding also being cut?
Good morning, Thulasizwe, and good morning to your listeners. Perhaps I can preface my comments by making two brief observations. The one is that South Africa has, over the last 3 decades or so, built a cadre of highly trained scientists of international repute who've been conducting science that has been important not only for our country and region, but for the whole world, and particularly strong in the domains of HIV medicine and TB scholarship, with many pioneering contributions, which include the understanding of infection dynamics, disease epidemiology, its immunology, as well as clinical trials for effective therapies. And these have completely transformed our understanding of these two infections. And currently, this enterprise is under threat as many face losing jobs, many may emigrate, and many may end up losing their faith in science as a profession. And the second comment is really to say that South Africa has achieved that success, not wholly, but in a large part due to the investment of the American people. And so to express gratitude and acknowledge the role of American federal funding and taxes in supporting the highly impactful research enterprise in this country. So to come to your question, if you look at funding flows to South Africa to support research from the US, they come in one of two ways. There is what is referred to as the Overseas Development Assistance Program. This is a program of donor aid coming from the U.S. National Fiscus, which supports programs that relate to agriculture, sanitation, climate change mitigation, inter alia other programs, as well as health. And in relation to health, there are 3 agencies that are key. PEPFAR, this is the U.S. President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. And then PEPFAR funds through either USAID or the CDC. And what we've seen in the last 2 months has been a systematic and intentional withdrawal of funds through PEPFAR and USAID, but the CDC mechanisms remain in place. On the other hand, we have the Department of Health and Human Services, which under it has got 13 different agencies, and one of those are the National Institutes of Health.
I see.
And the NIH is the largest funder globally of biomedical research, funded to the tune of almost $50 billion annually.
So I read
currently,
I read into what you are saying there, Prof, that it being linked to the Department of Health and Human Services means that the risk of funding being cut is real.
So at this stage, we are not sure. So most of the funding to South Africa is linked to institutions in the US, and the work of the NIH is absolutely critical for the scientific endeavor in America. And we've received rumors that there may be intentions in the new US administration to withdraw funding for South Africa, but there's been no official communication as yet, and both CDC and NIH funding continues.
Would it be more difficult to dismantle compared to the dismantling of, the work that has been done by PEPFAR-related agencies, given the interlinkages you mentioned between institutions doing research in South Africa and institutions in the US? Does that make the NIH-related grants more difficult to dismantle?
I think if observations of the last 2 months have taught us anything, is that predicting what the new US administration is going to do is extremely difficult and fraught with problems. One would have argued even dismantling the current programs that they have would have been very difficult given the profound consequences on human life, not just in other countries, but in the US as well. And yet they've acted swiftly in a way that has been quite ruthless in cutting those programs. And so it is not a unrealistic possibility that the same may happen to NIH programs that involve South Africa.
Lastly, Prof, what would be the impact if indeed this feared funding cut were to happen, specifically relating to NIH and the work that we've been doing as South Africa as far as TB is concerned? And compound with that, your response to that question, a response that then includes what mitigation can we put in place?
The consequences to us shortly would be catastrophic and quite devastating for South Africa. You may be aware that South Africa is the largest recipient of NIH funding, as it was of PEPFAR funding outside of the US. And what this means is that we will see major research programs collapse. It means that hundreds of thousands of employees in universities, science council, and other research active entities would lose jobs and livelihoods. And three, it means that we would have an impact on our ability to train the next generation with scholarships for postgraduate students as well as fellowship for early career scientists under threat. But perhaps critically, it also means that our ability to sustain South Africa's role as one of the premier contributors to the generation of knowledge and application of existing knowledge in new ways would be significantly threatened. And so to come to your question around mitigations, I think absolutely critical is the realization that the void that would be left by complete withdrawal of the US is too big a hole for anybody else to fill. And so it's absolutely critical that as scientists, as the government, we keep our engagements with the US going and to ensure that we maintain political, economic, and scientific ties. In addition, we need to ensure that the South African government contributes more to supporting this important national endeavor.
Yeah, I've got to leave it there. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Ntobeko Ntusi, who is the CEO of the South African Medical Research Council.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Update on the crash on Joburg's N3. It is northbound, but it's in the right lane, so very heavy going into that from Van Buren Road through Galulis and into Edenvale. Southbound getting caught having a look, so from Modderfontein Road, quite a heavy queue down to that Linksfield exit. And behind all of that, the N12 and R24, it's in from Ekurhuleni side, quite heavy, as you can imagine, trying to get through Galulis and to get into the N3 North. So alternative side roads, local routes are open and flowing. Good idea to get onto those. The Mike 1 from Boyson's, in fact from Goldreef City up through Crown towards sort of Car Street, Smith Street territory stays busy, and then behind that the M2 still queuing up coming through from Joe Slovo Drive. All the dramas that we had unfolding in the bottom end of the N1 through Midrand, collisions, multiple of them, and a breakdown, all of that is being cleared. The only real traffic you'll find is south of Buccleuch on the Mike 1 towards Marlborough Drive. Solomon Mshlungu from Linwood Road moving westbound towards Old Farm, massive queues there. Also Mopani Highway inbound, expect queues as you come down towards the Eskiam Pathlali junction. Durban, the big queues that we were reporting earlier this morning inbound on the N3, it was quite heavy. It's still a bit sluggish between Paradise Valley and Spaghetti Junction, but it's moving a lot better. An earlier crash on the N2 southbound going into Spaghetti Junction, that scene has been cleared, and the collision at Sabaya coming out of the airport, that's out of the way as well. Cape Town, N1 fairly busy this morning from Century City over the elevated freeway. Marine Drive is queuing still at Woodbridge Island, that can sometimes linger around to mid-morning, and there's a whole pile of traffic on Voortrekker Road through Maitland down towards that container storage area. So Voortrekker Road moving Maitland in towards Salt River, if you like, is quite unusually backed up. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The Cheetahs are very hungry for victory. However, Bafana say they are in the business of collecting 3 points. The West battles it out with the South. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Experience the delight of African football. Benin versus South Africa on Tuesday, 25 March at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, S3, and at 6 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Second place, Buccleuch, and number 1 on the lot, Toulouse, are battling it out in the top of the table clash. They both believe they deserve maximum points. This is the top 14. Rugby, the French way. Catch the big clash of giants between Bordeaux Union Buccleuch and Stade Rouen on Sunday, 23 March at 10 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Admittedly, I've not given you enough time to engage with me this morning. So let's see what we can squeeze in the remaining minutes of this show. A few voice notes, and then I'll take 2 calls very quickly.
Good morning, Thulas and SAFM listeners. Thulas, for the metros to use the state resources, they are learning from the best. That's why they did it, because they are learning from the best that is running the country. Thank you. It's Lucy in Gauteng.
Morning, Thulas. Panyaza is preparing for local elections and for presidency in 2029.
Mm-hmm.
And they're competing with Western Cape. What are Panyaza doing now? People were asking about those expensive cars. Where does the money come from? Thank you, Thulas.
All right. Thank you for that. I'm chuckling because of you mentioned the presidency. He says he has no ambition for any other position beyond the one where he is at the moment. In fact, let's close it off with 2 calls that have to do with the conversation we had earlier on with Premier Panyaza Lesufi. Let me start with Ntlantla in KwaZulu-Natal. Good morning to you, Ntlantla.
No, brother. Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to exercise my constitutional rights.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
You see, my brother, Upanyaza Lesufi mustn't come and lie to the South Africans. You see, this issue of making fun with black people and with contract employment. It's nonsense, my brother. It's a breach of Clause 7 of the Freedom Charter, which they say they are implementing it in their laws, my brother. And it's also a breach to come and say we are giving employment, but we are giving employment to the youth. We are not against the idea of giving the youth the employment, but to say that the discrimination of other people who are also capable of doing work.
Yeah, gotcha.
The issue of age, it's a breach of subsection 3 of this thing, of the Democratic Clause of age.
Gotcha. Tlantla, thank you for that.
Of the Constitution.
Thank you for that. And I think you're not the first person to raise that concern that says, in our attempt to respond to the pressing needs to address youth unemployment, we must not forget that unemployment affects the population beyond just the youth. In rightly prioritizing youth unemployment, let's not leave out people who don't fall within the category of youth. Butana, let's close it off with you this morning. Short and sharp for me, please.
My brother,
yes.
Good morning, my brother. Strong words, but meaningless. I mean, it's not the first time that they've been abused by these so-called traffic officers. They've done it in Johannesburg. There was no consequences. So you can talk. These unions that are affiliated to ANC, they do as they please. No consequences. You know, just find that guy, national commissioner, and ask him why the police could not take action with criminality that was happening there. They must explain to us. Leave Panyaza. Panyaza's promised heaven and earth has never happened.
Butana, thank you. Let's leave it there. On that strong note, that's Butana there calling in and bringing us to the end of today's edition of The Morning Brief. Thank you for listening and thank you for your engagement. The Talking Point with Kete Motlatlana is up next after the news here on SAFM.
Thank you, Tulas and the team. Top stories at 9. The number of Mpox confirmed cases rises to 31 and Jocelyn trial expected to continue in court. For SAFM News, I am Ondalambana and a very good day. 3 more cases of Mpox have been confirmed in Ekurhuleni in Gauteng. This brings the number of cases to 31 since the outbreak started in May last year. Mpox symptoms include a rash which may last between 2 and 4 weeks, fever, headache, muscle aches, back pain and swollen glands. National Health Department spokesperson Foster Mohale has urged the public to visit the nearest clinic if they present with these symptoms.
This also highlights the necessity of rapid and well-coordinated contact tracing activities for early detection and effective management of positive cases. None of the patients have recent travel history to countries or regions currently experiencing Mpox outbreak. This suggests that there is an ongoing local transmission of the virus around the country. All patients are self-isolating and receiving appropriate clinical management from healthcare workers.
Another witness could be called to testify in the Jocelyn Smith kidnapping and human trafficking trial in the High Court in Cape Town today. That's in the event that doctors book off the state's star witness, Laurentia Lombard. Yesterday, Lombard broke down on the stand and the trial was postponed to today. She showed signs of strain several times when defense attorney Fanny Harmse cross-examined her. Harmse has been attempting to discredit Lombard in an effort to prove that she is an unreliable witness. Judge Nathan Erasmus also questioned Lombard on several discrepancies in her testimony. The Electoral Commission in the Western Cape says the MK party has won Ward 1 in the Saldanha Bay municipal election. Provincial Electoral Officer Michael Hendrickse says 8 parties contested the by-elections in the 2 voting districts in Dyersville and Middelbos in Ward 1 in the municipality. Hendrickse says Mzwandile Biko from the MK party obtained 36.3% of the votes to secure the ward for the party. The ANC second with 26.7% of the votes and the Patriotic Alliance third with 19.8% of the votes. The EFF is fourth. Hendrickse says 55% of over 6,000 registered voters made their mark in yesterday's by-election. Namibia's President-elect Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah says her country will continue to support calls for the reform of the UN Security Council. 72-year-old Nandi-Ndaitwah is Namibia's first female leader. She was elected to office in last year's elections. Nandi-Ndaitwah was speaking in an exclusive interview with SABC News in Windhoek ahead of her inauguration tomorrow.
As members of the United Nations, we continue to demand the reform of the Security Council because the Security Council is a body that was created specifically to maintain world peace. But because of the imbalance that is now there, because since it was formed at the initial formation of the organization, there has been no reform done, and that has really made it to be irrelevant in a way to a certain extent.
Recapping the top story, 3 more cases of Mpox have been confirmed in Ekurhuleni in Gauteng. This brings the number of cases to 31 since the outbreak started in May last year. I am Ondalambana for SAFM News Headlines at 9:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
Something big is coming. 6:30 will never be the same. Amalanga Wafani, only on SABC 1.
The Cheetahs are very hungry for victory. However, Bafana say